Hello and good morning and welcome to our next painting webinar. Thanks for being here. Today is January. I have to look at the calendar. January 15, 2021. If you're watching this from the future, we are here. We survived 2020. Anyhow, so I just wanted to welcome everyone. We're excited for this assignment. We're recording the webinar. If you want to interact, you can just type the questions on the chat. And then we're going to open the microphones at the end of the webinar, and we can chat and exchange ideas, and also we'll give you feedback. But so yeah, if you haven't had a chance, we suggest you watch the presentation that we did yesterday regarding the conceptual inspiration behind the webinar. But essentially, it's just going to be a portrait assignment, and it's going to be a celebrity portrait. So I didn't mention that yesterday, but portraiture is seen as something a little bit more challenging than the regular themes, and celebrity portraiture. It just adds a new layer of challenge. But I'll just try to provide ideas, suggestions, and try to contextualize what we're doing in a way that feels encouraging and safe. And we'll provide some examples. I didn't have a chance to add more paintings in the folder, but I'm going to ask you, Jen, to do it. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Yay, I'm excited to have a job. I love unearthing our fun things together, so yay.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, I'll just give you some names, and I'm just going to jump right at the painting, and we're going to start sketching right away. If one image, so Julie, if one's image has top of head cut off, do you think it should frame it to include some of those images? I think there was one that there was a section. I don't think so. I think it would be interesting to do a close-up and just leave the head like cropped. Yeah, and what you could do is you could try a thumbnail mini sketch if you have a piece of paper, and kind of like do a preliminary potato shape and see if that works out. I am inclined to keep the same arrangement as the photo, because sometimes you have like croppings that may be interesting, but I would also test it on a piece of paper and see if doing the rest of the head would be doable. So let me just move this a little bit. So just what I do with this, what I do with this, actually, let me see, oops. All right. Okay, I think that's just gonna be okay, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna stand a little bit away from this, and trying not to hit all the stuff. Okay, so I have my charcoal. I'm gonna talk about the format that I'm using. I'm using 12 by 16. The reason why I'm using this size, it's because it's a little bit larger. So hopefully it's easier to capture on camera, but we recommend 9 by 12 or even smaller, just because of the time that we have, and it's a much more comfortable size. Just know that if you use something larger than 9 by 12, you may have to, we encourage you to consider another session to do this. The shape of the paper is rectangular, and I'm using a landscape orientation. I was just downloading some of the images, and I put the images in the folder. By the way, we have a shared image folder. There's a link, and we suggested you guys add your name, because we want to make sure that as much as possible, we want to make sure that everyone, or each one of us, has a different image, so all the paintings are different. So just go back to the folder if you haven't. The link is in the email that we sent, and you'll notice that the images have comments with people's names on the comments, and that means that that person assigned themselves that image. So if you don't find any images left on the portfolio that we put together, then you can just Google and see if you can find us. There are plenty of images of her that are more what was the word, that flattering, yeah, flattering, than the Vogue cover, which every piece that I read about it, things get worse and worse and worse. But I'm not going to get into that yet. I just want to strictly talk about how I'm going to start the assignment. So I have a Kinko's nearby, and I just went quickly and I did a printout of the image, and I did it in a way that the size is comparable to my format. So one of the things that I'm going to say also with this assignment and any assignment, there's always a challenge when you have a photograph that has a specific format, meaning an orientation and a relationship between width and height that is different than the format that you're using. So always pause and think about how are you going to arrange that image that may be in a different format. Maybe it's like an Instagram photo that's square and you have something rectangular. Maybe it's a photo. We talked about it yesterday during studio time. Someone used a square photo and they decided to use vertical instead. So just be aware that translating the subject from two different formats may be a challenge. And as I mentioned to Julie, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do a previous sketch to study how that figure will uh, get arranged on the format that we're using. All right, so what I do is, or what I did is I lowered the image and I aligned it to the bottom of my format because the photograph has very little space from the top of the head to the edge. So I just wanted to give a little bit more space on my um, arrangement. And also, we've been talking recently about the elements of composition and what's important. And I'm going to bring up two elements. Number one, focal points. This is something that now it's going to be part of the conversation. So based on the tutorial and what we've learned, it's not recommended traditionally to add more than 3 focal points on a painting, since we have a portrait and all the images pretty much focus on her face. So that could be easier in regards of choosing one single focal point, her face. But if you choose an image that has more elements, like something on the background or the rest of the figure or her hands closer to the face, just keep in mind that keeping your arrangement simplified into 3 or less focal points, it's always recommended. 3 or less focal points. The second principle of composition that is extremely important is movement. And we learned that movement in regards to composition, it's not just things moving or representing things that move, like someone tossing an object or someone running or something blurry representing speed. The principle of movement has to do with how much space we leave between the subject and the edges of the format to allow the viewer to wander around and look at the subject from outside the contour. So movement is a spatial based concept that has to do with the amount of space that we leave. I always mention that the edges of a format act like magnets. The magnets, meaning the magnets, meaning like they pull anything that's gets close to them towards the edge. So if you have a composition and something gets really close to the edge, know that the edge will act as a magnet, and it may look like it's touching the edge. Also, it just squeezes the movement of the eye. So it's not recommended in traditional terms to put the edge to put lines too close to the edge. So am I doing da da da? Am I doing something similar, Jen? I think.
We worked it out. Your
Okay.
composition is a little different. Yours is cropped differently. It's more um, closer.
Okay.
She's further away in Lois's, and Lois decided to do a vertical, to do a portrait style
Okay.
instead of the horizontal. So she's cool. If you're cool,
So yeah, Lois, another thing that you could do if you want, if you're using a digital image, you can always flip horizontally if it's very similar. So you have the same but flipped horizontally, if that's something that you may be interested in, if you're using a digital format. But I'm totally fine if you're fine.
she seems totally fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Whoops, sorry for that. And I'm just gonna bring along, and I'm just going to start measuring some parameters. So before I do my potato shape, and I'm gonna explain what that means, I try to set up how tall, how wide that figure is gonna be, that portrait. And let me just explain also that since this is a portrait and I like to measure a lot more than when I do a landscape or a still life, the whole session may include just a sketch and a wash and pretty much the beginnings of the first notes, because portraiture takes a little bit longer. I like to measure, compare much more during the sketching process than any other subject. So I'm not gonna I'm gonna try to be realistic in regards of how in regards to how much time I have and how much I'm going to achieve. So this is good. And so that's going to be this. And then since this is very similar, what I'm going to do is set up my lines. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the lines that are cropping around the format. And since the format it's pretty much similar in the sense of the 12 by 16, this is 17 by 11. So I think I'm just gonna get those lines and I'm gonna go ahead and do my first potato shape. What's a potato, what I call a potato shape? A potato shape, it's just like a very broad silhouette that allows me to realize or find out how big the subject is going to be compared to the format that I'm using. So it has no details, I work fast. And the only thing that I'm focused here, I'm focused on right now, it's how this figure is composed within the limits or limits of my format. I call it potato shape because it's not detail oriented and it's just a blob or an amorphous thing. So I set up the height here and that helps me a lot instead of finding a point, because there's nothing that feels more challenging when we start sketching than composition. Time and time again, I find myself, if I don't control the composition or study the composition, I end up with really big empty spaces that don't create harmonious composition, or I find myself squeezing elements towards one edge. It's just a little bit um, challenging. So that's why rather than finding a point or starting point blank without considering the format, I always try to find a way to build a scaffolding, and that could be a single line or do something like that. All right, so I'm just gonna continue. So now that I have this potato shape, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna work with the hair. So I think this is the first line. So what I do after I have the potato shape, I just go over, and then this is gonna be retracing, over meaning retracing this a little bit. But as I retrace it, I start incorporating some marks. And I don't want to get into the structural lines yet because I feel like yeah, I feel like I just want to find out exactly if I feel comfortable with what I've got. Because I know that I'm going to have to make a lot of changes. And I feel like if I go into structural elements right now, I'm just going to feel like too attached to what I have, and it's going to be much harder to make the changes. So rather than doing that, yeah, I think what I want to do is just concentrate on the actual separation or distinction between the subject. Yeah. So one of the things that I find fascinating about portraiture is that there are so many things that we can work with that create likeness, if that's something that we're interested in, create likeness that have nothing to do with the facial features. So the hairstyle, for example, it's something that gives a lot of likeness, and we don't even have to go into structural lines inside. So that's why I take this opportunity to recognize that I need to work on a lot of things prior to actually tackle the facial features. And those things could help me set a very strong foundation to whatever is going to happen inside of the silhouette. So that's the reason that we sometimes recognize someone from behind just by the posture and also by their hair. We don't have to look at someone's face to recognize them. When we look at a crowd and we're trying to find someone in a crowd, all right, we'll see what happens. But that's my potato shape, and I went through a couple of stages. First to position it, and I'm happy with the movement that I'm allowing on the top, and also refining it a little bit. I'm going to talk about the main structural lines, but before that, Jen, I'm just going to give you three names if I find them. Oh yeah, I got them. So in 2019, there's a famous gallery in LA, in Hollywood, Jeffrey, I think it's pronounced Deitch or Deit. He used to be the curator at MoMA, and then he parted ways and he founded his own gallery, Jeffrey Deit. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. This is just terrible. Anyhow, his gallery is just incredible. And in 2019, he organized a show titled Punch, and it was curated by Nina Chanel, who's an artist, and she is Black. And she actually put together a group of artists that are mostly painters, contemporary artists. And I consider that show to be a really important show because it just featured a lot of Black artists painting the Black experience. So what I'm gonna give you, because I didn't have time, Jen, I'm gonna give you a few names of artists, and if you can just put some examples of their work on the, it's all portraiture, examples of their work on the folder. One is, the first one is David Schrobe. David Schrobe. I'm gonna put it on the text. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, very interesting because the reason why I want to bring this examples is that not everybody who paints portraits now uses photographic likeness. So it's just very important to understand that likeness, when we do a celebrity portrait, seems to be the most important thing in portraiture, and it's not. So we just have to understand that although it's the reason why we recognize that person, it's because it has a popular recognition. The foundation of portraiture of a celebrity, it's not likeness, in my opinion. So that's why it's important to bring these examples. I'm just gonna also give you this other one, Devon uh, Shimoyama. Beautiful paintings, and as soon as you have them, Jen, this is a female black artist that now it's like hot. Her paintings go for millions already, and everyone is just trying to get a piece of um, her work. I don't know how to pronounce her first name, but she's everywhere, and she, yeah, she has a very special style, and just want to share that. And finally, there's another one. There are a couple more. There's one of my favorite ones. Um, this painting or this artist just take my breath. My takes my breath away. He is a he has some reminiscence, if I may say this word, with um, gosh, Egon Sheila. It's like a contemporary Egon Sheila. It's just so freaking uh, beautiful, and also very strong, very dramatic. All right, Jen. So you have a lot, but that's a good. It's a good start. I have more, but as soon as you have them, let me know. I just want to share because it's important to have these references. And one of the things that I talked during the presentation is that for me, the best way to learn about representation of minorities is to study how those minorities represented their experience. And that's why I consider that show so important, at least for my own experience, because it was so um, such a learning experience to find out exactly how each one of those artists and more represented the Black experience. Um, yeah, so I'm just going back to the painting. So the three most important structural lines on a portrait, the three most important are the hairline, number one. Don't even go to eyes yet if you don't have the hairline, number one. The chin line, number two, sorry, the chin line, and the neckline if the person's wearing something, wearing clothes, and you can see the neckline. Again, the hairline, the chin line, and the neckline. So why are those the most important? Because those three structural lines will help you create relationships between the main silhouette and the different frameworks of the rest of the things inside of the portrait. So I'm going to start with the hairline. And so the hairline, it's essentially the separation between, yeah, the skin of the face, and if the person has hair naturally. So I'm just going to find out where the bone of the eye is. And let me just put the chin. I'm just already doing that, but I'm going to put the chin more or less. So this is where the chin, again, when I try to find a point, if you notice, I did it with the top and I'm doing it right here. I don't just kind of like look at my eyes. I mean, look at my eyes, use my eyes and try to map that exact point on a blank space. It doesn't work for me. I'd rather just set up um, a height or a level, and then I can just find out where that line may be. But so yeah, so that's the chin. And if you don't have the image right next and then you're using the digital image, then you can always find elements outside the silhouette that can give you a clue where the alignment may be happening inside. So I think this is this, and so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. This is a little bit further in, so there's always going to be a certain level of discombobulation in our sketches. So this is, it's just gonna be a moving target. We need to build the framework, the foundation, and then we can just start like moving things around, moving that needle. But so don't worry about things not being recognizable or feeling a little bit strange or weird. And by the way, I love when painted portraits don't um, uh, read exactly the same. There's something about the same as the live image. There is something about things not being perfect that I feel has power and character. And hopefully examples of those portraits by those artists that I just mentioned will give you or will inspire you not to feel super limited in regards of like um, likeness being the be all and end all. All right, so now that I have this, what I do is I just go back at it and then see if I can refine this a tad. There are different ways of approaching this process, by the way. I mean, I'm just using this just because I feel um, that it just facilitates the approach from a broader and less specific to more specific. It works with structure and it starts with structure and it ends with detail rather than what we usually do, start with detail and then we don't even know what happens with the structure. So for me, this works. Uh, and I can apply this to any, I'm just gonna do the chin a little bit. And the chin is just like a little bit of shading, so there's no line. I'm just gonna shade it. I think that's good. Actually, I'm doing something different, bringing some shading already as a framing. So as you notice, I work a little bit fast. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. All right, so I'm gonna go next to the, it's very Mona Lisa-like. I like it. This is why working remotely, it's good, you guys, because, you know, it's just, it's important to have a little bit of privacy when we do portraiture, and when we do celebrity portraiture, you know, it's good to not have any eyes looking at what we're doing because these stages are really terrifying. All right, so I'm going to talk about uh, what order I follow when I do the facial features and why I follow that order. So one of the formulas or one of the things that some uh, painters and some people that do portraiture recommend is to find the keystone. The keystone is an area of the face that contains the crossing of a vertical axis with the eye level. The keystone, it's made up of 4 points: the heads of the eyebrows, and the tear ducts, if you can see them. So in my case, I'm just going to connect those. And I have this keystone right here. So I'm doing with my charcoal, I'm just connecting. You don't have to if you are working with a screen, but just find out where those points are. This is the most important part of a face in regards of starting sketching, just because the eye level and the vertical axis will give you the orientation of the face. And that's something that we overlook so frequently. We always make faces facing forward, regardless of the orientation of the face. So now that I have the keystone, the idea is to disassociate what we're drawing right now. Don't think like we're doing a face, and just observe where the different elements are compared to what we are or currently what we currently have. So I see this sort of like inverted trapezoid shape, and I notice that it's closer to the silhouette of the. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna position it to the best of my ability. So I also, yeah, I think that's okay. So the height, and it's really close. Sometimes I even exaggerate. All right, so I think this is it. That's the keystone. Some people, rather than doing this, what they do is on the face, they trace what they believe or where they believe the axis line, the vertical axis line is. An axis line is a core line that runs through the middle or the center of an object. And then they check the eye level. So doing the vertical axis and the eye level is a different version of doing the trapezoid or the keystone. And that's something that you can do as well. Just find out. The most important aspect here is to find out where that crossing is on your drawing, and to make sure that it doesn't fall in the right dead middle of it, unless that's the image that or yeah, the posture or the orientation that you have on the photograph. I know that some of the images she's facing forward, but even when a person is facing forward, there's always, I can always appreciate a slight movement. There's never a 100% facing forward type of thing. And not to mention, let's say we find an image that it's fully facing forward. There's exactly the same image from the axis to the left and the axis to the right. If that happens, then I check out the orientation of the shoulders, because there's a very strong chance that the orientation of the shoulders may be different than the orientation of the head. And what we do instead, we overlook all those elements and we make faces facing forward and shoulders facing with the same orientation. And then our portraits become rigid and very static. All right. So, and then what? First thing is to do the eyebrows. The eyebrows are the most architectural part of the face. I just feel like it's just a little bit easier to do the eyebrows first. So what I do is I start with the head of the eyebrow, and then I just continue with the tail. So more or less, and you know, I can also find out if there is an alignment here. And then I'm going to do the other eyebrow on the other side. Things that you could do to check the eyebrows: run a line that connects both heads and find out if that line has the same tilt as in your image. So there are a lot of tricks and things that you could do with the eyebrows that can set up the foundation for the rest of the facial features. And again, any angle, any inclination, tilt um, can make a huge difference on the portrait. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I know that this is gonna get all messed up with my wash, but I'm just doing this. Yeah, I'm just doing this. All right, so, and then what next? Now that I have the eyebrows, and what I look at this stage, what I look at is also the distance between the tail of an eyebrow and then the hairline, that structural line that I said it was so important. So we have a tendency of making the eyebrows too short and put too much space between the tail of the eyebrow and the hairline, and then yeah, things don't feel super harmonious. So yeah, I think that's okay in regards of all right, and then I just go to the tear duct. And what I'm going to do only is the eyeline on the top and the island on the bottom of the shape of the eye. But I always start with a tear duct. So, and I try not to make the line super strong and sharp. All right, so this is where I'm at right now. I'm bearing it all. So yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. So I just compared the shape of the eye is different on the upper curvature than it is on the lower curvature. One of the things that I love the most about the images that I've seen of her is her smile. And I feel like even though it's more difficult to make a portrait of someone laughing or smiling, I think that's a very strong signature. And something that it's so nice actually when the majority of the images of a politician are featuring the politician laughing. I think that should check one of the boxes of future candidates. Don't elect someone who doesn't smile ever. Uh, all right, so then what? So now that I have the eyebrows on the eyes, what I go next is to the bottom of the nose. The bottom of the nose is the area that contains the most shadows. And again, with the same premise as setting up levels. So rather than just finding that point in the blankness of the paper, what I do is, I'm using this trick naturally, but I could just find out, comparing it with the cheekbone, comparing it with the hair, where the bottom of the nose is. And then what I do is I just, do a little bit of the shading below. I don't do any bridges or any lines connecting. I think that's something that I'm going to do later, but not now. We make the noses much longer than they are. So I'm just going to do this also. I think that's good. I think that's good. So be careful or be aware or raise awareness to the fact that we elongate the noses much more. So always try to compare that bottom of the nose with something else on the portrait, because that's going to give you probably a more harmonious, and by harmonious, I mean with a more integrated relationship with the rest of the drawing. All right, so, and then I also look at the width. I make alignments between the width of the bottom of the nose and whatever happened on the eyes. So you could do that as well. Just run an imaginary line, finding out where that alignment is. And yeah, I think that's good. Also, what I do is find out how close the nostril is to the edge of the nose. I think that also gives me the idea of um, continuing that um, orientation. Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting the blank. All right, let's go to the mouth. And so what I do with the mouth, if if the lips are closed, I look at the line that defines the closure of the lips. And then I try to position it. But with the mouth open, I'm gonna do the opening of the mouth first without the lips. So let me just see. This is the center of the mouth. And the most important thing is how much lower it is from how much lower it is from the bottom of the nose. And also I'm going to make a vertical alignment, and the mouth, it's pretty long on the side. So I'm just going to do the opening like this. Okay, I think that's what's going to happen. And instead of like drawing the lips, what I do is I shade the lips. So I don't all right, she has some something. I'm capturing something. So that's good. But again, repeating what I did, and this may be usually we start already painting. So I love portraiture, and I love to go, or I never get tired of going over every single element. And the reason is because even though I've been able to group together these strategies or premises, every single phase is different. And I get really excited to go over the premises with a completely different phase. So I may just be able to wash this, but that's okay, because I think those principles are extremely helpful, at least in my practice, to compare, constantly compare, think of positions, go from structure to detail rather than the other way around. I haven't even gone to value yet, and to make changes. And by the way, um, you may be using a formal grid, and that could work. This levels and lines and marks are a personalized version of a grid based on this image. So I am technically using a grid, but instead of using like a broad general grid, what I'm using is marks that are more related to the image that I have. But even when you use a grid, and I would dare to say, even if you had a projector and were able to project the image and trace it, there's always going to be some sort of manipulation and change. Don't think like just because we have the grid or we can project something, we can just nail it like exactly. There, for whatever reason, there's always something that needs to be tweaked. So anyhow, so I'm just gonna, I think I'm okay with that, with what I've got. And you can assess what you've got. If you want now, you can run that vertical axis. You can run the vertical axis and see if there's something, like for example, in my case, I run the vertical axis and I noticed that I made the Cupid bow way too close to the center, and it needs to be moved uh, to the left. So it correlates with the axis of the nose. I know it's like a really tiny detail and it may not be that important, but my brain already is kind of like shifting or recognizing. I was like looking at neurologist on TikTok. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I just I'm guilty. And some neurologists were recommending. Oh my gosh, this is not going well. But it's a fascinating field because apparently we have things that we do by reflex that our brain is really hardwired to do, like touching your face with the left hand or the right hand. So some neurologists they recommend to do things differently with your hands, for example, in order to make our brains work and avoid relying on patterns to keep our brains kind of like young and active and not fall into a mindless way of like reacting to things. I cannot find an example of these little easy exercises, but I feel like drawing, it's precisely a really great way of tricking our brain not to fall into patterns. Like, here we go. I'm now an expert in neurology. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find ways to correlate what I have and understand that my brain shifted things to the middle and by association, and that's not the way things look. So I'm trying to find tricks and ways to correlate, relate what I have, and um, work by observation rather than just by association. All right, so I have that. I have that. I think what I'm gonna do before I just do the shading, which is probably considered shading, I'm just gonna do the iris inside.
Julio, the photos are up whenever you
Oh,
want them
perfect.
to them.
Okay, thanks. So I'm gonna do the shading and then I'll share some of the photos. But I'm gonna introduce the shading actually, and then I'll share the photos. So once we have a little bit of a silhouette and the structural lines and the facial features, um, the last part of sketching is to add the values. It's extremely important because we may have all these lines, and the linear aspect may just give us an illusion that things are not really fully formed. So bringing values on your linear work will integrate things, and most importantly, will make things more visible for us so we can just make tweaks and adjustments. So the best way, or the most traditional way to deconstruct or unpack the values of a painting, of an image, is to follow a scale of grades or values. And traditionally, going from darker to lighter has been a very practical, easy way to unpack the values of an image. Okay, so that means that look at the image and find out where your darkest darks are. Use the side of the charcoal or the tip, and you can hatch it really tightly, and start blocking out the values from darker to lighter. And while you do that, uh, what do you think, Jen? Did you find any, what's your opinion on the paintings?
No, they're really amazing. I included the installation photos of the whole show too.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
enormous.
yeah.
There was a lot of articles about the show, and it seems like it got a lot of press.
Oh, oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, so you guys, I need to share this. I don't care if we just do charcoal today, but yeah. So I'm glad. Thanks so much, Jen, for sharing that. So these are images of the show. This gallery is it's tucked in a really hidden area. Um, I think it's technically Hollywood. It's between La Brea and Highland and north of Santa Monica Boulevard. It's one of those like streets. There are a lot of production companies there, small production companies, and it's a big warehouse. And then he just turned it into a gallery. So yeah, this is the show Punch. These are the install images. Mostly, they were all paintings actually. So thanks, Jen, for adding that. Um, it was packed when I went during the opening. There was a line outside. It was just incredible. So yeah, David Schroeb. Thanks for the title, but this is how he makes portraits. This is it's a very collage. He uses representational stuff, but it's a very modern way of mixing tradition and also modern language, I would say. Uh, so let me see if I can. I love when he does the faces. Things are blocked. I love that the flat areas, the interpretation of the space, the different materials. I think it's sensational. Oh, I just love this painter so much. Moaco Boafo, and large format. And that's a painter that I mentioned that it's very Egon Schiele like. Although I always kind of like approach putting a painter in a box by bringing a painter that has existed before. Like, my mind is in a blank, but what's the painter anyhow? The American Matisse or the American Monet or whatever. It's just like not fair, and I should not use that example. But anyhow, I'm using it. But yeah, I just love the interpretation, and hopefully the reason why this is very important. It's not only to see how modern painters approach traditional um, um, painting, right? Portraiture. I'm sorry. It's also most importantly how Black painters paint the Black experience. To me, that's this is Chabalala self, the one that it's so sought after today, and it's a different way of approaching. She uses collage, um, fabric, and also painting, and everyone is in line to get her work that she hasn't even painted. I don't know who represents her, but it was interesting to see that different. And I don't even know why that's happening. Um, but yeah, I mean, the art market is nuts in that sense. I love this guy, Divan Shimoyama. He uses very, very, very saturated tones. There's a similarity between the first artist and this one in the sense that there's the idea of not treating the entire surface in the same way. So there is some likeness or representation on the face, but then the rest is blocked out and there's a line outlining things. And then you have like a little bit more of detail treatment on the outside. The paintings are large and he's very meticulous. Everything looks almost printed by a laser printer, but it's painted. And I believe it's acrylic. I believe he uses acrylic. So thanks, Jen, so much. These are great examples, 4 different examples of modern portraiture of Black painters painting the Black experience. I don't know. I mean, we could just, I don't want to throw any prejudgments, but to me, this is something that felt different. Maybe my mind is already thinking differently, but there's certainly a difference about someone who belongs to a minority painting the minority experience. And for me, certainly this speaks of that, if you ask me. And that's relative, but because ultimately, although now there is sort of like split between artists who prefer to be called painters and artists who love to identify themselves with Black painters, and that's something that at the beginning of the 20th century, Black artists hated to be labeled Black artists. In the 60s and 70s, there was a group of artists that wanted to be called Black artists and wanted to be different than the rest. Now I feel like there's a split. There's a minority that prefer or ultimately want to be called artists, and but the majority identify with the idea of the identity, the art identity. I was going to say like identity politics, but it's the same idea. So they are proud, and they think it's very important right now to be identified as Black artists. So that has fluctuated throughout the 20th century in different ways. During the abstract expressionism, for example, in New York in the 50s and 60s, some Black artists they did abstract expressionism. They did not want to be called Black artists at all. They just thought it was demeaning. Um, and I have a book I'm going to bring of a very famous abstract expressionist that talks about it. Anyhow, thanks, Jen. Sorry, I'm just, this is a little bit of a long segue from what we're doing, but I thought this would be important because I personally thought it was important for me when I saw the show. And I'm going to give you a few more names if you want, Jen. Uh, so um, let me see. Uh, actually, I have only 3 more, so that's good. And I haven't checked exactly their work, so see if there's. I think it's portraiture, but you let me know, Jen, and just. Okay, these are the 3 left on the show.
Okay. So this is in the same show?
It's the same show, yeah. Punch.
Okay.
It's the same
Cool.
show.
Gucci Ghost. Hello.
Say that again.
Gucci Ghost.
Right. Oh, the name.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. All right. So I hope you guys moved on, and I'm just gonna. I have 2 minutes to go to the first half of the session, but that's okay. So value. When I left to do this mini lecture, and I'm sorry that I took the time, but I was talking about value. Bone structure is very important. So find out where the shadows are, because when I look at this, I look at uh, parts of the face that inform me where the light direction is coming from. And it's something that we overlook. Just always find out if you can, what kind of lighting there is, if it's like outdoor lighting or artificial lighting, because that's very important. It has a different cast, and when we do second notes, this could be important to capture. But what's most important here is to find out the light direction, because it's just going to give you an idea. It's going to enhance the idea of volume, and it's going to create perspective, by the way. So you notice that the light, it's concentrated on the lighter areas. I can identify them between the eyebrows and the cheekbones, but this is not the only way, sorry, the only way or the only reason that this is important in regards of the bone structure. We tend to paint the bone structure flat, and we forget about the highs and lows of light. What's important is that we may recognize, we may go to the next level and find out what the light direction is on the face, but how about the neck? Correlating the light direction on the face and on the neck will just go to stage 2 of sophistication on your painting. Because when we stay on stage 1, if we go to stage 1, which means going from flat skin tone to a little bit of a light direction, we forget that the neck is also part of that head, and we paint the neck with a different value, sometimes the same value, and it brings the neck forward. Sometimes we don't put enough shadows, so the face and the neck look like one piece. And sometimes the light direction helps us anchor the bottom of the neck, which this is actually very good that she's wearing jewelry. And sometimes this sort of like a choker style jewelry informs us where the neck actually conjoins with the chest, which is a very important facial feature. Sometimes we make things like so flat that we don't give that sense of anchor to the head. And even though there may not be any line determining that, it helps to understand that anchor point. The light direction also helps us find out when we do the cylindric aspect of the portrait. It helps us find out where the highlight in that cylindric shape is, because depending on the direction, the highlight may be closer to one side of the neck or maybe closer to the other side of the neck. So correlating the light direction on face and neck, and the third point, correlating it with the hair. We tend to make the hair one single color, and we forget that the light also affects the hair. The light direction on the hair can prevent us from making, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the Lego kind of hair, in which the hair looks like a super strong, heavy piece that has no values. We want to be as far as possible from painting Lego hairs. And what can help us is analyze the light direction. So the light's coming from this direction on my image, and it hits the hair with this highlight here, and it hits the hair with this highlight here. And then there is the shadow on the back of the hair naturally, because it's the back of the head. And also what's important is how the light direction affects the clothing. That's maybe a subcategory. All right, so sorry, that just took way too long, and I'm sorry. Also anatomically, I hope you guys are already like doing second notes. There's no one new in the group, so that's good. You guys are pros. So please be already painting, blending, and doing stuff like that. And I'm trying to just bring some, yeah, she looks a little younger, but that's okay. I'm gonna remove the trapezoid element. I think that's okay. This is just the genesis of our portrait. It's not supposed to be like accurate or anything like that. So always remember, you know. So I want to talk about two lines. The nasolabial. Sound ridiculous. Sometimes I'm ridiculous. The nasolabial line is the line that may run from the nostril to the corner of the mouth. And some people that's very pronounced, and some people that may not be pronounced. Why is it important? It's important because it may just give us an idea of the bone structure, creating highs and lows on that particular point. So identify the nasolabial line, very, very crucial. So the line that runs through the corner of the nose, the nostril to the nose. It doesn't end at the corner of the mouth. It kind of like hovers outside of the corner of the mouth. I'm saying this because I see, because of her expression, there is a little bit. I'm gonna do the nose, um, the profile of the nose. Okay, I think that's good. Um, all right, I'm excited. This is fun. I hope you breathe. Yesterday was fun. Um, it's important that you breathe. We were just talking about holding our breath when we paint. Uh, have some hot liquids, some tea or coffee next to you, and just have a sip. Uh, See how things are going. Pause. Um, so yeah, it's all good. This is there are many reasons why we're doing this. I think I'm really happy that we are doing and you guys are joining, because I feel like doing this today, um, I feel good. This gives me joy. I just feel I've learned things. Um, I'm ready. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. I feel this, I consider this almost as a journal of uh, the week one next week. And it's not just likeness that's important. I think it's understanding this as a visual journal as well, and why this is important. And even though it was frustrating to read about the controversy and stuff, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And I just kind of like pledge during the next 4 years to continue learning, because I feel like one of the things that I'm most excited about is people that um, have gone through this many, many times, actually using platforms to explain. And I just feel like it's my responsibility to listen and learn. And so this was really good. And the two articles on the Washington Post were so good, so important to read that. I was talking to some friends, and we all have to check in our own not so great habits, because some friends that I have feel exhausted that there's such an emphasis. I mean, it's just going to be open. So much emphasis on women and so much emphasis on minorities. And there is sort of like this in private quarters, there's this frustration about, oh my gosh, I'm tired, literally. I have to hear these words. I'm tired. Um, so yeah, we all have to check in with ourselves and our friends, because that's happening, you guys, in private. All right. So um, the scrutiny also. We need to end that scrutinizing. We all do it, and so yeah, I think that's gonna be as far as I'm gonna go, and it's just 12:08 already, and I haven't even laid one single piece of wet stuff. So I'm going to talk about what should happen with what I'm going to try to do within the next hour. So after the sketch, and again, in portraiture, this happens. I tend to spend a little bit more time with the sketch, just because I want to measure. And also, what's important is that I need to cap the work that I'm doing with sketching, because although I'm spending more time, I don't want this to get too developed. So the sketching becomes a drawing. I always have to check and find out how far I've gone, because if it becomes too detailed, then it's just I'm not being very efficient with the time. So I'm gonna use, I have like a messy palette from yesterday. Oh, you can see it from here. I think that's good. And I'm gonna use it. And I have two liquids, the mineral spirits and the medium oil combination. I'm gonna talk about it. But so the first stage is going to be technically called staining, which is the transition from dry to wet. And it's a very technical stage in which we are priming the surface and we are sealing the charcoal. So it's a pre-foundational. I wouldn't even call it foundational. It's like a pre-K of school. So we just want to create big blocks of liquid with some neutrals. And I'm going to be very traditional here because of the notes on the portrait. I'm going to only use burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, it's a very traditional color to use for staining. And if you have other colors and other elements, go for it. But I just feel like I just don't want to think too much about it. I'm just going to use the burnt sienna as a single color. And what I'll create is a monochromatic wash just with a single color. And I'm going to guide myself with a darker charcoal. So this will be my order. First, second, third, and then fourth, maybe just with turpentine. So again, the idea is not to create detail or lightness, but just uh, to create a pre-foundational layer. So here goes. Wow, this is like so dirty and I love it. So, okay, so, and I'm using the big brush. So big blocks. And then, yeah. So, and then this one right here. I chose this neutral tone because of the skin tone of her of the image, and yeah. So literally, I just go like 1, 2, and 3. So this is what I just said, and that's what I'm gonna do. Blocking out. I block out by value. I understand that this is not a stage that's gonna be visible. I also realize that I'm glad I didn't go forward with details on the portrait, just because this is going to be blue, but it's okay. I just wash it right now. Um, yeah, because there's you lose a little bit of definition when you do the. I wish I would have put more charcoal in the background here. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So I work fast, and then I'm just gonna continue with the wash. So again, what is that I'm doing? I'm just like staining. Yeah, I'm staining, and that means that I'm the intention here. It's very technical. I'm just priming the painting surface. Yeah, priming the painting surface, sealing the charcoal, and I'm using a very traditional, a very traditional neutral tone. I see this being used in portraiture a lot. The burnt sienna. In fact, there is a brand. No, there's a brand. Every brand of paint creates a version of burnt sienna that has a lot of transparency, and it's specifically designed. I mean, you can use it for anything, but Jen, maybe if you have time, if you can find if Gamblin has a transparent version of burnt sienna. Uh, yeah,
Sure. Yeah, kind of like zinc white, but
right.
transparent. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's called burnt sienna, but then it's sort of like the cadmium yellow. That's light, medium, deep. I think it's called more transparent or something. But I think it has the same name. But yeah, it would be interesting if you can find it. That'd be awesome. All right, so this is just gonna all go away, which is a good thing in a sense because it will allow me to it will allow me uh, to redraw again. All right, and this one I said the final one will be just turpentine. Right, yeah. All right, yeah. So this is it. Oh, it's all good. I'm just gonna use the rag, and you can with the rag you can always empty out some of the value if you want it, and then build a little bit of the bone structure. So that could just it's not important, but I think that could be interesting. Yeah. So the idea again is just to create to prime the paper. This is the painting surface, and notice that at the beginning of the session I mentioned the word format. But now I'm talking about the painting surface, and depending on yeah, I'm just gonna block the whole thing. There we go. Um, Depending on the painting surface, you may have to work with the difference of the consistency on your medium. You use oil or any other medium, and it also depends on the actual painting surface. I'm using cotton paper, so there is a little bit of absorbance, but it's not super absorbent. If you use canvas board, which I find to be the most challenging surface, the wash will the liquid will get trapped into the micro pockets, and it's just going to be a little bit messier. So don't get frustrated, but yeah, it's a very challenging surface. um, Wood panels with gesso, if they're pre um, prepped, then it's just the most luxurious surface. So it just depends. Anything non-porous like mylar, I love that surface also. We were just talking with you, Claire, actually, the first paintings we did on mylar, and I think we should just go back to that as a surface because it's so gorgeous, such a gorgeous surface. So everything um, slides, or it's very slippery, so you have to put less liquid and a little bit more paint. So it just depends. All right, so this is my wash. This is where I'm at, um, and that's okay. And I personally I love losing a little bit of definition because then I have an opportunity to bring it forward again, especially with charcoal. All right, so I'm done with the wash. I'm just gonna move to the first notes, and that's gonna occupy possibly the rest of the session. Yeah, I think so. What are first notes? It's the application of a thin layer over the wash that creates opacity, and it starts revealing where the edges are going to be, where the edges of things. So it's also very mosaic-like. The difference between a wash and a first note is the opacity, number one. It's the opacity. And number two is the fact that it's a little bit more compartmentalized rather than just sort of like a smudged or rubbed. Um, First notes are not details, and they're not they do not involve blending necessarily. So I just like to define before I get too carried away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block out, this time also blocking out, but at a smaller scale. And I'm going to bring pieces, blocked out pieces, small masses of colors that are going to be a little bit more opaque and start defining some of the edges. So think stained glass, think a window, think mosaic. So blocks and pieces that form the face. So that's what I would call first notes. No blending, no detail, no drawing, no small brushes to, I'm not going to use a small brush because if I do, I'm going to start doing her eyelashes at this stage. And it's, I'm going to, here's the issue with doing details now. We're just going to slow down the process. The more detail that we go right now, the more time is going to get to develop this painting. And we talk over and over again about how sometimes we can only get one shot to do a painting. uh, Paintings that require more than a session, the more sessions we add, the harder it becomes to get back to it. The more of a struggle it is to kind of like just get into it again. So I that's the reality of it. So I just don't want to slow down the process right now. And I see it all the time. If I were to paint this and I would just do, for example, the eye or the mouth, and I spend 2 hours, I know that I have to go back to the painting, but this is me. I don't have interest in going back. I feel like it's tedious and work, and I don't feel inspired by it. And it just becomes like, work that I'm going to get paid for. So we start finding reasons to procrastinate and not get back to the painting. And then in the end, it's just we have a bunch of unfinished paintings. So moral of the story, use first notes in a blocking way that doesn't involve detailed or small brushes. So I'm just gonna, I know myself, I mean, some painters are very disciplined, and then they finish the mouth today and tomorrow they finish one eye. I just can't. It's just, there's a difference for me. There's a fine line that it took me a while to learn between work and creation. And I know that creativity does involve a huge amount of work. Work meaning like pure work, just building. Um, but I need to find a balance, because if all there is for me to uh, work without making artistic decisions, it's just really boring. So I need to find a balance between keeping the work going and then finding moments where I can make artistic decisions, uh, adding more detail here and less there, or just working more spontaneously. And that keeps me motivated. So I'm going to use like 3 medium brushes just because I don't know. Well, these two are very similar. Maybe just 2 medium brushes. I like to bring my old and hairy guys now because these are medium brushes that are really bad, old, and beyond expiration date. But they're very good because it's a good transition between being specifically detailed with the brush and having more coverage. So this for me works because it will prevent me from drifting into detail work. They're not tight, they're not compact, they're frayed and uh, super bad. But I know that this will help me to create a mosaic. What do I do now? So I'm going to switch liquids. Instead of like using the turpentine to mix, I'm going to use the medium. And I'm going to go darker to lighter. And by the way, we could do a little bit of a study of color now. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I tend to leave that for second notes, but I'm going to introduce this new painting hack that we've been using for a few months. So if you have like a cellophane piece in your home, and or if not, you can just use a Ziploc if you have one, and you can cut it open. So, and this works only if you have a printout or a photograph. Just put it over the photograph, and then think of what color. Whoa, that looks really good. So actually, this is like a raw umber, so I don't have to mix anything. So this is a good idea or technique or trick to study the color, because we realize that there's a huge disconnect always. I will say the word always here, 100% of the time, no matter how much practice you have on your back or on your belt, I'm sorry, there's always a disconnect between what we observe as a color we try to identify and what we end up mixing. There's always a jump. So it's a good idea to test the color. Sometimes you're going to see a lot of artists putting color samples outside, sometimes even on top of the painting. I saw that on YouTube. One artist was using the cellophane to kind of like test it directly. And it allows me to understand if the value is approximate and then if I need to change the temperature. So what I'm doing right now, I'm using, oh, by the way, in regards of the palette, we use 2 whites and 2 blacks. If you're joining us after a few months, titanium white and zinc white. Zinc white, it's more transparent and it's wonderful for blending and to create lighter versions of color without whiting out areas. And then the 2 blacks, one cold and one warm. The cold one is the one that we usually use, the paints gray, but we introduced Van Dyke brown as the warm black. And having, I mean, we can talk about it later, but having both now, I could not do just with one. I mean, I could obviously, but it's so good to have that warm black, because sometimes there are certain areas that they're warmer in temperature, and you don't want to use a Mars black or an ivory black. We don't use ivory black, by the way, but if you have a Mars black, it's just going to obliterate. So a Van Dyke brown, and then what I'll do is, whoops, I need more Van Dyke brown. This is too much medium. What I'll do is I'll just block. Uh, yeah, I'll just start blocking the area. It's so wet that I don't need that much medium. So this is almost like resketching again in a way. And I'm just like, now yeah, I see that the cheekbone is sticking out too much. So I'm just reining it in. So darker to lighter, by the way, I'm using darker to lighter. So I'm working by value. And I'm using this messed up crazy brush just because I want to make sure that I bring masses and not details. I wouldn't be able to do the eyeball with this. So, and I think that's good. It's like a little leash. Because otherwise we're just going to be painting the space between the teeth and start with like flossing and no, there's so much about painting that has to do about restrain. And so just know that, you know, we overwork things too much. All right, so I'm just working on that. This Van Dyke brown is just so wonderful. Okay, nothing happened. I just had a glass of tea. All right, some more Van Dyke brown. I think that's good. Speaking of, let me just kind of like stuff and see.
Julio, the transparent version of burnt sienna, I put it in the chat, but it's called transparent earth orange.
Perfect.
And it's in the notes.
Thanks. Yeah.
So,
Okay, good.
other paintings are up whenever you want.
Okay, great. And also, I mean, I don't know if it's too much, but if you can put a snapshot of this color, the transparent one, next to the burnt sienna on the folder, so we can see the difference.
Sure.
Thanks. Um, Like for example, this is now blue. So I'm just gonna bring some Payne's gray, and I have a little bit of blue from yesterday, some cerulean. So I'm just gonna bring that Payne's gray because it's a little bit darker. And if you notice, I had like a wash underneath with the burnt sienna, the opposite color. But because now I'm using a little bit of medium and less, more paint. I'm sorry, more paint. I'm able to easily block that and add this bluish color. What I'm going to do also right now, I want to study the color of the hair right here. So I'm going to start with um, the burnt sienna. That's way too colorful and also very sorry, very dark. All right, so let me just kind of like study this, and I need to bring raw umber because it's a dark color and it's very important. The hair is very important. So I just want to study this color. It's a little bit darker and it has more orange. So some burnt sienna. Yeah, this is like really interesting. Maybe some ochre. I think that's gonna do it. And a little bit darker. I may need to bring cadmium here, or maybe a alizarin crimson. Actually, I may have to bring a alizarin crimson. You guys, yeah. All right, let's just kind of like start with this basic color, but this is another way to understand that sometimes to diversify the color palette. Yeah, that's a good color for now. It's a little bit of burnt sienna, raw umber, and yellow ochre actually, but it's not red enough. So what I'll do is I'll just add it where I see it. And then I can just make some, I think I'm going to spend more time on this painting later, working on the hair, because I love not only the actual movement of it, but the different uh, values, the different values. Yeah. All right. So first notes, I'm doing one step at a time. Um, don't worry about what this looks like or if it resembles anything or not. It's totally, it's a preliminary stage, so don't worry about that. This is Payne's gray, and it's a little bit lower. I think that's good. And perhaps what I'll do now, I need a brush that is not as messed up, just because of the. I'm gonna study the color of the skin, and I think I'm actually I think this is just gonna be really important. I'm gonna choose a part of the skin, a skin tone, a part of the skin that kind of like is medium. Medium in the sense that it's not a highlight and it's not a shadow. So that's what I'm gonna do. So, and then I'm gonna start testing. I think I need to bring my other narrow color brush because studying the skin color, and I highly recommend you guys you take a little bit more time to study the color. Conceptually, this will be very important. But if we don't break it down or study the skin color, um, I think, how should I end that sentence? Yeah, so it's very important, period. We don't want to make things too white. That's the only thing I would say. unless you really want to. But that's the danger right here, because sometimes I'm just going to go there. We work by association. We do the same thing with everything else: blue sky, green grass, brown tree trunk. And it's not the case. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, depending on the time of the day, depending on the tree species, and depends on so many things. Um, my point is that we tend to make the same color skin regardless. And this could be a great opportunity to study skin color. I truly believe that we all have a really wide spectrum of skin values. Talking about skin values, some things fall on under a highlight and they're lighter, and that happens regardless of the pigmentation of the skin. So let's just get that out of the way. Skin pigmentation and skin color are two different things. And sometimes the shadows, depending on the light, depending where we are, may be as dark as someone's pigmentation. So we already know that we talk about this. We used to talk about this with younger painters. I'm not even, I don't know why I brought it up, but yeah, skin pigmentation and skin color are two different things. Um, Also, yeah, we work by association. We tend to make always the same skin color regardless of the light condition. And I'm not even going to mention it, but regardless of the subject. But most likely we tend to find like an average tone for the skin color. And then we apply it to every single figure. It doesn't mean like we are this or that. We do it with everything. So I think it's important to just study the skin color that we see on the photograph. And I'm going to explain how I try to not match, but get close to our color using this sort of like gimmick or hack. So I'm going to start by, there are different ways of getting to a skin tone, depending on the colors that you have. Maybe the combination of burnt sienna and if you have a light pink could get you to a tan tone. Sometimes the burnt sienna and the raw, I mean the ecru can also give you to that sort of like middle of the road, I guess, tan color. So I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna just use a part of I'm using ecru and um, burnt sienna. I just mix those two together. Boom, boom, boom. And I know this will be my starting point. And then I'm just gonna put it like right on the temple, right here. Okay, so value wise, which is when I try to uh, approximate to a color, this is my step one and step two. Step one is the value. I always start with the value, how close or how far away it is, how much darker or lighter. Once I get the value approximate uh, with an approximate range, then I look at the temperature. Is it a cold color or is it warmer? So value wise, I feel like I could use a little bit more of the uh, ecru and find out value wise a little bit more of the ecru. I'm not mixing any new colors. Notice that I try to break down the mixing of colors by single criteria, because this is what happens if I don't have an order. I start picking up colors from here and there. Oh, maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that. And then, yes, we're going to get to a muddy tone that may be really good, but I get overwhelmed and I lose control. So value first, see how close to the value that you're trying to get close to you can be. So I'm using two tones. Value now, I think it's okay. So temperature, it's much warmer. So how can I make it warmer? So I think I'm gonna bring a little bit of the pink and a little bit of again, a little bit more of the burnt sienna. But I'm gonna start with pink and see what happens. I need more warmth. Maybe the yellow ochre. All right, so it's getting way too yellow. So I think I need to bring the reds. I'm sorry, but I think it's just gonna be very hard to do it without. I have the reds right here. And I'm just gonna bring the alizarin crimson, which is such an excellent color for warmer skin tones. Excellent color for warmer skin tones. And I'm just gonna add that tone. Uh, Alizarin crimson feels almost like it's a darker, deeper red, so much superior than cadmium red. I used to think that cadmium red was the most important red, but it is not actually. So a little bit of alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson is a synthetic, it consists of a synthetic pigment, so I need to put much less. Oh, yes. Oh, nailed it. Sorry. I swear the tea doesn't have anything. I didn't spike it. Alizarin crimson works. It just gives me a little bit of a golden note because with the traditional colors that we love working with organic based pigments because there's something really, really Renaissance like. We have synthetic pigments and we have them sort of like as a plan B, and we know their power. So alizarin crimson is synthetic. We use less because it can overtake the mixture, but we've done it time and time again. It works wonderfully for warming up or removing the yellow, if that's the case, of the mixture of the organic pigments. So, oh, it's so perfect. You have no idea. So now I'll have to move the needle a little bit. There's no way, by the way, let me just explain this. There's no way that by just looking at the photo and letting my brain um, decide, I would have never got. I mean, this I look at the palette and it just looks. It doesn't look like at all. So that's the reason why it's important to study the colors. Oh my gosh, it's like 12:41, but that's okay. So this is a little bit warmer. So what I'm gonna do, oh, it's just so beautiful and it's so perfect. And for a fact, um, I know for a fact, I would have never been able to uh, bring this color without studying it. So once I sort of like study the color, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, what I did was way too yellow, and that's going to be something that I want you to pause. And at any stage that you may have, just check out if the color scheme that you made is too yellow, because with the earth notes, we think like the golden tone of the burnt cyan, I mean the yellow ochre can do the trick, and then we turn it into we bring in too much yellow to the tones. I just because of this stage, I just think that this was so amazing to do this exercise. So amazing. That's why I love portraiture so much. Just every face under different light conditions gives me something different. Once I study the color, I know that I can just recreate it approximately because in my mind, I was able to break that pattern that I was talking about the neurologist recommending us doing exercise to break the pattern. Um, and now I also have a sample on the palette. So I can compare new mixtures to what I did. And Claire, I hope you're using a palette because this is fundamental. Sorry, I'm making fun of you, but and I apologize. So I'm just going to introduce another premise and something very interesting that I learned over the course of the past months. There is a categorization of blending that has to do with the location, and I never thought of it. And I'm going to explain. Blending could fall into these two categories. When we blend on the palette and when we blend on the painting surface. And this is what happens when we mix colors. Most of the time, we do a little bit of blending on the palette, and we do a lot more blending on the painting surface. What happens when we do that? We lose control. We just start like blending with areas that are adjacent to the painting area. Then we just bring some tones directly from the palette onto the painting surface. And then that just goes who knows where. And then we start reining it in with a little bit of the opposite because we just lost control. And then it may just, it's a gamble. We may just do something spectacular, and in the end it may happen. I suck at gambling. My advice is that do most of the blending, if not all of it, on the palette. Do the blending on the palette and then just apply it on the painting surface. At least with the first notes, we can tweak and blend later on the painting surface. But now I would say 95% blending occurs on the palette. Just a little bit of blending maybe happening here by accident. Sorry. So that was the blending chapter. I'm going to bring some lighter notes right now, maybe with some white and ecru. And I'll just do, I'll just do with more pink actually. I could just use I'm not gonna go there because there's something nice about being spontaneous. You know what? I was gonna say, let's just be real. I want to test this color because again, conceptually, yeah, I put a lot of pink. This looks way too pink. I would not do it like that just by looking at the color. It's just, don't rely on your brain. Just rely on observation. Oh, so much better. So much better. So much better. Our brains are hardwired. So again, I'm just gonna a little bit of medium, and I did a lighter version of the skin tone that I studied that it's so pink. I would have never come up with this because my brain doesn't associate this light pink with skin. It simply doesn't. It's like, it just doesn't look natural to my brain. So this is why this is so important. Anyhow, study the color, blend on your palette heavily, rely on the palette to blend. And then, yeah, I may just bring some of the darker note here, and maybe I just blend a tad on the top. So yeah, I think that's okay. I'm working, by the way, my strategy would be this. I don't know, I'm not gonna have time, obviously, but my strategy would be to work on the bone structure. I'm not even gonna deal with teeth or eyebrows or anything because I just feel like personally I feel like it's extremely important on this portrait to just concentrate and focus on the actual framework or foundation first, skin color, and bone structure, and then I'll just apply the facial features on top of it. So that's going to be my plan. That's going to be my plan. And yeah, so pixelating, and trying to disassociate what I'm doing with what this is supposed to look like. It's not supposed to look like anything. I'm just still building first notes, for heaven's sake. This is sort of like so preliminary. So I know I'll get there. I'll get there. I'll develop the painting. It's going to take me more than one session. That's fine. I'll do that. We gather on Wednesdays, just to do that precisely, to just do another pass. And so my recommendation, forget about lightness. I don't care if this doesn't look like anybody, but spend some time with skin color study. That's if you take anything from this, because I understand there's like a almost like a responsibility to do something really pretty and beautiful, especially after what we talked about, how the carelessness and the lack of attention on the photograph, which every time I see that photo now, it's like, it's so crystal clear. So I feel like on a subconscious level, we feel almost like obligated to make her look pretty in our paintings. So, but slow down, just take the skin tone as a priority, study it on the image. It's gonna shock you how much different um, it is than what we actually think. Um, it is. All right, and then finally, what I'm gonna do, this is gonna look good. This is gonna look good, I know. So I'm gonna test the darker version because I did two values. I did the medium. I said I was gonna test the medium note, and that was really helpful. And this sort of like, um, I would argue that this comes from the fact that I was talking about the light direction, and I recognized that this concentrated more of a highlight. So I picked this area of the temple as a midtone, and I was able to study this color, start with this one, and then adding white and pink, study this one. And now there is a color underneath the neck that's darker. It's not raw umber. And it may have some raw umber, but it's different. So I feel like I need to study that color now. Yeah, again, I just used the same color as the hair. So notice that I had this color that I made with raw umber, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna, but it just has too much yellow for this area. So this alizarin crimson. What happens if you don't have alizarin crimson? I forgot how to make it from the primaries, but you can use cadmium red and perhaps add a little bit of blue to it, because yeah, that's what I would do. And maybe a little bit of the, if you have Van Dyke brown, because it's a dark red. So yeah, that's what I would do. Start with cadmium red, maybe add a tiny bit of blue, a tiny bit of the Van Dyke brown of the raw umber, add a little bit of the burnt sienna, definitely. You want to create a red that's darker than cadmium red. And yeah, so a little bit of the same color as the hair, but with some alizarin crimson. I think I'm getting there, but now it's a little bit too dark. So I'm gonna bring some um, ecru. Yeah, ecru. Sorry. Yeah, it's a little bit redder. It has a little bit more red. Again, my brain is saying no. My brain is saying no. No, no, this is not it. Okay, I think that's good. It had a little bit much more um, alizarin crimson than the one on the side. So here I go. So it's right here. Oh, it's so amazingly gorgeous and beautiful. And again, I would have never come up with this. And what's important also with studying the color like this, whether you have the cellophane or whether you kind of like do a test, and if you have a screen, you can also make the test by blending the colors on the palette, and then um, uh, putting the um, paintbrush, the bristles, in front of the screen. And it's just going to give you a sense. It's not going to be super clear, but it's going to give you a sense mostly about the temperature, if it has too much yellow or if it needs more red, and also in regards to the value, if it's too dark or too light. So this is definitely, I would have never, I can tell you right now, because this is so red, has so much um, reddish tone, I would have never come up with this color. Okay, good. So now I have three skin tones: the medium, the light, and the dark. So I can continue by applying the skin tone. And let me just see how I did it. Some of this, I remember. I don't have to use this all the time, because there's something about, whoops, I don't have to use this hack all the time. There's something about interpreting the color that I feel like it's also very powerful. Not everything needs to be super well studied. Um, yeah, some of this and some alizarin crimson. Okay, let's just do this. So there is something about being spontaneous in regards of making color. But now I just, my brain, um, it's not thinking in terms of the color that I would have associated this with. Wow, so much red again. I mean, so much yellow. So I just realized that I need to tone down the yellow when I mix. Yeah, I think that's good. Maybe with some white. It's not, yeah, perfect. Excellent. Good. Love it. Great. I just ran out of paint, so I needed to make more. And okay, so this is working. Once I have that base with the first notes, then I can start thinking about closing gaps, doing details. But I think to me, this on this particular portrait, because it's a close-up and there's so much of her skin that's showing, this was very important. This was very important to do first. Very, very, very important. We need to retrain our brain to not get too used to see color the way it does. So we need to put a leash and then just pull it somewhere else, because our brain will always see color in a very specific way, and simplifying it. And our job, no, it's not our job. What am I talking about? But we should aspire to exercise our brain to understand that color is much more complicated and complex than what it thinks. I think that's a better approach. It's our job. We have no jobs. I mean, we have no job to do anything in regards of painting. Sorry. All right, so yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy. This was a good decision to study the color. It looks like I don't care what it looks like, but I advanced so much with this because right now I know that I won't have to spend another hour and then realize that the color is like off. Because on a portrait, it's not just about the position of things. There's so much more that's involved. Um, that is important. I don't care what this looks like, but I advance a lot more the game by, oh my gosh, that's just crazy. I'm looking at the time with the color study. So I'm just going to talk about, and I'm using right now, just, yeah, I'm going to continue using this medium brush with shorter bristles and a little bit tighter. So that's, it's technically a flat brush, and I use shorter bristles because it gives me much more poignancy. No, that's not the word. Detail when I do a brush stroke. So that kind of, and I don't like to use like flat. So this is like it's called a cat's tongue style, which has the round toes, the toes of the bristles. I love learning words. The toes of the bristles are not flat. They make a little bit of a round shape. I just can't with the flat brushes. I just need I'm working towards that. So this is the best thing after round brushes, which to me are the most important. All right, so I'm gonna do facial features in the next 2 minutes or so, but just get ready to conclude the session. So there's a distinction between finishing. By all means, we will not regard any of the paintings as finished. I don't care how far ahead you have been able to go. So they will all be in progress, but finishing is one thing. Concluding, it's a different thing. So just take the next couple of minutes or so, or whatever minutes, to find a conclusion and finding what is that you want to conclude your stage or your session with. And that's up ultimately your own choice. You could conclude with, for example, a good idea is to bring some of the notes on the background, because I always believe the background is as important as the figure. So that's something that I would probably do before going to the facial features. Or you may just want to bring in more detail or more highlights to the hair. Conclusions include lighter notes, if you ask me, as a general rule. So maybe some pastel notes. So what I'll do is I'm gonna bring, I'm not gonna, my eyes see sort of like almost black, but I know myself, and I'm gonna bring a gentler, almost like a darker skin version of the color rather than black. Or, uh, and I'm gonna take the opportunity to start bringing some facial features. So I don't load my brush too much with paint. And the paint that I have is a darker, a lighter version of the hair color. Why? Because if we trust our brain to make the color decision, our brain is going to say eyebrow brown. We're just going to stick our brushes onto the uh, raw umber, and we're just going to make something super dark and very graphic. So I don't trust my brain, which is a good thing. And instead, I use something gentler. I use a version of the hair color and very little of it. And yeah, so I think that is good. And I'm going to use the same thing for the eyes. So I'm sketching essentially right now. I'm just sketching, not too much paint because it's a small area. I want to be able to have room um, to make changes. But yeah, that looks good. Yeah, that looks good. I think that looks good. I'm just gonna continue a little bit. So that would be my idea of bringing um, some drawing. And then I'll just do the other one. Maybe I should have started with um, and then some of the color inside. I just want to be super gentle and not too aggressive with the facial features. Just because again, if we trust our brain will work by association. Eyelashes black, and then we'll just put so much black paint there that it's going to be so hard to manipulate. So maybe the nostril I'm able to see, so a little bit. And then I'm just gonna bring that bring back the open mouth a tad with a cupid bow, making sure that I remember that it was uh, yeah, I think that's working. I think the mouth is a little bit too towards the right, but I know that with very little work, I can get there. And this is a good example of gentle and careful. Again, use restrain when you work on something at this stage. You can always manipulate it later, but if you just go all out with color or with drawing, it's harder to manipulate. And I want to make sure that I don't feel claustrophobic when I just use a color and then I just have no other choice but to deal with it. So, all right, I'm gonna explain what's gonna happen next. I'm just gonna take a picture of this and I'm gonna upload it to the folder. I know you guys that this was probably much more challenging than what we've done before, especially the toaster and the single elements. It's a portrait, but we're among friends, and I promise I will be very complimentary. And the reason why it's not mandatory, obviously, and we respect your decision. But if you upload and share, it's just going to give us an opportunity to all of us to understand the stages and ideas that may be mentioned on someone's painting that we could apply to our painting. So it's really helpful to sort of like see the results, and don't feel obligated. But we're going to take a 10-minute break. So it's 1:05. So at 1:10, no, 1:15, sorry. At 1:15, I'm going to pause the recording. And at 1:15, we're going to reconvene. And then during these 10 minutes, you could just add a few strokes. Notice that in very little time, you can accomplish a lot. So if you want to do your final concluding touches of this session, and then take a photo and upload it. So when we reconvene, we can just go over uh, the stages, and then I'll do my best to provide ideas or notes so you can use to continue. And also, I want to see what you uploaded, Jen, so we can talk about other examples of portraiture. So 10 minutes, stretch, drink, and use the restroom. Sorry, I'm treating you like kindergartners, but yes, so we get so absorbed. So take this 10 minutes to kind of like do all those things, and then we'll see you in 10 minutes. I continue. Welcome back, and I'm just gonna. I started the recording again, and I also allowed people to unmute and show video, but I'm just gonna, hey, Chris, how are you? Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited. Your work looks amazing, so I'm really excited. Um, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna really quickly, before I go into the details, I'm gonna go to the examples that Jen uploaded about the show, Nina Chanel, and this is very Jacob Lawrence. Yeah, the African American painter. So it's very much inspired, and I love the orientation and the representation of the figures. And talk about having more than three focal points. There are a lot of focal points, but still there's a very well-studied rhythm between the paintings, and I like the pairings of the figures. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pairings. It's really nicely balanced. So there's a lot of chaos, but there's a lot of a very well-studied compositional elements. And I love the different pigmentations of the skin. So I think that's a fantastic example. This is just so incredible. Greg Breda, acrylic on vellum. Vellum is the material, the non-porous material. I would say non-porous, like I forgot the name of the material that I said before. But anyhow, so yeah, beautiful composition, one focal point. Check out the movement. We talked about the principles of composition and how there is so much movement that was left between the figure and the edges. So very well studied composition, some dynamic elements like the diagonal. And so, yeah, really incredible. And this painting was in the show, Arc Manoro Niles. Um, and it's big, and he is I don't know what he paints right now, but he had more than one painting, and then he also blocks out parts of the portrait, like the other artist that we initially showed, where there's a flat surface with like a high neon um, element. So, oh yeah, we can. So another different way of approaching, and what I love is how these painters, some of them, incorporate tradition with their own perspective. So this is a very traditional, classical, if you will, composition and representation of a figure. But then there are symbols, there are ways of applying or blocking the paint, use of color. So I think that's really interesting, the combination of classic and yeah, another Nina Chanel, very Jacob Lawrence again. And this is Jen. This is an extraordinary image. I love this person sitting on the subway with two masks, the black and white. It's talk about super strong um, expression of uh, the black reality, or whatever
Yeah.
the expression I used before. So really beautiful.
This wasn't from the same show, but I just
Yeah, you had to. Yeah.
Bible, yeah.
I think it's amazing. Trevor Andrew. I love this cowboy and cowgirl. I think this was on the show.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't actually post the actual Gucci ghost, but these were from the show. Yeah.
and these were large. I love this. A black Popeye. You know, a different representational language, but the color palette is so beautiful, and it's such a fun, strong image. So the cowgirl, I think that was got the idea of guns, and the way I read it, guns and whiteness and cowboy times and all the implications. It's still traditional and new, and that's what I love. They're not trying to reinvent the language, and there's something really powerful about that. And I read things about being part of the minority, being part of a minority, it just restricts how you can use language, because in order for an artist to be able to talk about the narrative, um, they use figurative language. So a lot of people talk about how these artists are not even thinking about abstraction, because they have to talk with a visual language that's recognizable. So anyhow, and yeah, those two. Thanks, Jen. Burnt sienna has more opacity. And look at the tints alone with white titanium. They give you a shade that could be the beginning of a skin tone. So burnt sienna is a great base for a skin tone. And then the transparent earth orange, which has a similar brown, but by the way that Gamblin does the sample, they do the color sample. They put more paint and more transparency, so you can see the opacity of the color, and then on the main block or the main area, so you can see here how transparent this color is. This is a perfect color or perfect paint to do washes or staining. I don't have it. I don't know. I use the burnt sienna and a lot more turpentine, but it's a good color to have in that sense. So, Darlene, this is you, right? Yes, I think so.
Oh,
Let's see.
hello.
Hi. Amazing. I love the composition. I think this is incredible. And I like the study of the skin. You have it in a very good place, I would say. Thanks for sharing it, by the way. But it's in a very good spot. So let me see if I can find, sorry, let me see if I can find the actual photograph, and we can go over, uh, I think it's this one, right?
Well,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
that's not it.
sorry.
That's it.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's, yeah. So, all right. So just for the purposes of, whoopsie, of finding, okay, here we go. really quickly. Oh yeah, you got a really nice sketch, Darlene. So that looks really strong. I'm so happy. Yeah, really great. Okay, so I like the composition, the arrangement. Oops, sorry. And did I put it right next to it? Sorry, I'm just making you guys dizzy. I just moved it. So, oh, okay. Here we go. All right, great. So yeah, I think, and this is an example. I think it was Julie. I think you mentioned that, but it's a good example. Can you guys see the, Darlene? Can you see the image?
Um, I just see my painting right now.
Okay, perfect. No, I just wanted to double check. Uh, so yeah, I think in regards to the composition, I like how it crowds the space, the format, and I think it was Julie that mentioned something about what if the top is cropped. So it just doesn't look weird or strange because it just goes beyond. So I also love the movement on the left and the right. Yeah, the left and the right. I think that's really nice. And so talking about the anatomy, I think you did a great job. I would say the position of the face, it's much more oriented towards the left on the, um, there's much more on, much more pronounced orientation towards the left of the painting. So
Oh,
if I
okay.
run an imaginary axis line, I feel like it's really close to the edge, and this is more centered.
I have to
So
move that.
I'm sorry.
I'll have to move it.
Well, I think you have it in a very good spot because you did the main composition, and you could move easily some of the facial features. I mean, it just depends. I would, because of the states that you have it, um, I would do it. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think I would. But yeah, I would possibly also, because this area of the hair, it's very narrow, and I would consider, because I almost feel like the same width, um, I can appreciate it on the from um, the silhouette on the left to the this line, and from this line to the back of the hair. So there's something about that balance between both sides, and perhaps consider either bringing a little bit more. That could be a good idea, to just bring a little bit more hair so there's more space. And then I would start by shading some of this area before moving anything, because you may get to, this is something that we could use at anytime we do a portrait. We could just shave from the profile in order to make the face look a little bit more oriented uh, towards the side. So perhaps the combination of bringing more hair and then shading from the left could be a good idea. But I love the smile. I think it's a very strong sketch. I mean, I love your style, Darlene. This alone to me looks really good. I know that you're probably gonna laugh, but I love this stage very much. And um, so perhaps also another feature that I would work on is the chin and the neck. I feel like this falls very much into the same alignment. And if there's something that stands out on the image, it's her chin and the line of the neck not being aligned. So I think you're gonna get a lot of um, development if you just also bring that line back. And that can help you also create an illusion of the face being oriented a little bit more towards the left. So all these things are mostly focused on drawing. If you ask me, I would group all those elements into the drawing category, because I feel like, you initiated the first notes, but I would just consider still working on drawing elements.
Okay, thanks. What about the background color?
Ooh, that's a good idea to consider. Oh my gosh.
I
Um,
didn't even go near there yet.
I know, but listen, personally, and this is a personal, everyone who gives an opinion about our work will have their point of view, and they may have something valid, but ultimately it comes down to us. So I love the fact that there's darkness on the background, and that creates more focus on her face. So I feel like on the background, the idea of bringing higher contrast between her face and the background makes her face more of a focal point. So if you keep this much lighter, then that contrast, it also works. It just brings focus on the face. But analyzing this image, I feel like the darker background brings that focal point on, brings more light on the face, frames the face also. I like the fact that there's this warmth. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna leave it here, and then you decide. But I would do
Okay,
it flat. I would do it flat.
thank you. Thanks. That helps.
Awesome. Oops, sorry, what have I done? Here, all right, so I'm just gonna go to the next, and so Sarah, okay, let me just bring the photo. How was this for you, Sarah? What was your experience? Was it, did you have a good time?
Uh, it's a caricature of what I want it to be, but I was going for certain things in the first pass, which I think I'm in the right. I'm going in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, let me just see. Some of them are, it's true. Lois, they're, I say the word Lois, but they're very similar. Is it this one? I think it's this one, right? Sorry.
No, that's
Oh,
not it.
that's Chris. Yeah.
No.
Oh, this one
Here
right
it
here.
is.
Yes,
Yeah, there it
yes.
is.
Okay, 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 okay. Just because the orientations are similar, and all right, let me just okay, so okay, yeah. I think I love this photo is just amazing. I have to say. I mean, seriously. I mean, you can just capture the spirit, and again, I think photos of people smiling should be a box about who uh, represents any kind of political or has any kind of any kind of political representation. I think that's obviously not accurate, but it's how low the bar is these days. If the people smile, if the person smiles, it's a good sign. Okay, so going, I'm gonna start with composition. I think I agree that vertical was a good choice. I have to agree. Yeah, but also be careful about, I think that's okay, but this is a little bit of a squeeze. And I know that that's the nature of the composition, but don't be afraid to, I'm gonna bring Darlene's example. Don't be afraid to go over if necessary, because you have this area right here that I feel like it could even go like further more out. And don't be afraid of this even being like higher if you need to, because right now the squeeze right here, and especially because the way it's addressed, it has almost like an alignment that it's flat. Those two things create kind of like a tension, and it almost feels like too squeezed in. Um, so just have that in mind in that sense, because you could, oops, sorry, you could, there's much more of a tilt here. Let me see if I can do this really quickly. Sort of like it's really close, but then there's more of an angle. So there's certainly a difference between the top and the angle of the hair. And considering the fact that you have this tilt on the face, so you have a tilt, you have this angle right here, and then also, which is something that it's different about this image, you have the neck following a different one. So you have like these three lines that create a lot of dynamic energy. And I would just consider, let me see if I can clear this, to have those axes on your composition. More of a tilt here. I feel like this has more of a verticality. And then the neck, it feels like very much vertical. So look at the image in regards of the axis and see what you can tweak to create that sort of like thrust to the back. Because right now the neck feels very rigid, and then there is almost like a forced twist on the head before even considering any facial features. I think that's what I would address or think about. So yeah, I think so. So there's a little bit of a tilt behind or tilt backwards of her face, and what that does is to create more of a foreshortened view of the nose. So if the nose is already short when we're face forward, when you tilt the head back, it shrinks a lot more. So I feel like the nose is way too long in this sense, and it just brings the head almost like vertical or forward. So I would just consider uh, working on this sense of foreshortening the nose. It's going to give you more space also between the nose and the lips, and it's just going to make the head tilt backwards a little bit more. Yeah, because that's definitely a treat that it's different. The orientation, the challenge of this position, it's not just the orientation. There is also an orientation on the face. It's just 3/4 and back. So yeah, because of that tilt on the back, you can see a little bit more of this shadow on the neck. You can see the chin and under the chin. So I feel like this is also very strong and regular. So I would work on the values under the neck. So overall, my main thing would be to work drawing elements, axis tilts, and foreshortening to keep the tilt backwards before even addressing any facial features. What do you think? Am I fired?
I think those are great notes, and I think I almost have to start over because
Oh,
no,
no.
it's okay. It's fine. I mean, I think that I don't have the dynamic of it correct. So I need to reorient her positioning in order to make it anatomically correct. And I'll play around with it, but if I can't,
Yeah.
then I can redo. But I also wanted to address one thing that you said about your friends being really tired of
Yeah.
females being in the news and achieving. Imagine how tired we feel listening to all the achievements of men throughout the centuries. And I wanted to say that when they become really, really, really sick of it, it will be because we have achieved some kind of an equality. And the reason I think it's important to do justice to Kamala Harris is because when it becomes ubiquitous, it will just be this person achieved something, not this woman achieved something.
Oh,
So these
yeah.
portraits are important.
Thanks, Sarah. And yeah,
Sorry, I just had to comment
yeah.
on that because my blood pressure went up when you said that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you chimed in. Yeah, it's just we're still far from even normalizing something, because I think that's more pervasive than we want to accept, even among our own bubble or inside of our own bubble. When people really open up, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of work to do. But yeah, I agree with you, because that's something that speaks about how deep rooted certain things are, and how sometimes maybe we resist more than we think, and by that resistance it reveals how much more work we have to do. And I try always to check on myself when these kind of things happen, because I know that that's something that we always have to be aware of, I'm not saying that it happens, but it was shocking to hear. But anyhow, so thanks for bringing that up. I agree with
Well,
you.
I also appreciate the discussion on skin tone because, as you know, I have a mixed colored child, and the children and the offspring of people that are of mixed heritage are really the Rainbow Coalition. And she has a lot of Indian in her as well as Native American. And so you've got those combinations along with African American, and it's a very interesting and beautiful skin tone that's hard to replicate.
I have to say that as a painter, I'm doing this for the first time because there are not many paintings of painted portraits of her. Doing this for me, the most interesting part was to actually study the skin color, because I would have never thought of the actual skin color, because the images that we have, and the associations that we make are one thing, but to actually study the skin color and realize that there's much more of this rainbow coalition that you said, really puts a perspective on how she was portrayed on the cover of Vogue, for starters. But um, yeah, so she is mixed, and there is a difference in that skin tone, and it's good to study it and understand that that's a combination of many many things. So it was to me it was the best part of the painting, just to study the color and realize that there's more red and there's less yellow, and it's more golden. I couldn't make that with just a yellow ochre, but I needed to bring a darker note. So yeah, yeah, very good. Because sometimes, we work by association, and then especially with someone that, and I'm sorry if I say something stupid, but some people can pass, and sometimes that can pass as other races, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes that reveals the seeds of racism in others, so it could be used as a way of like really knowing if the other person has issues with race or not, because I see it like sometimes. Kian is Persian, okay, he's from Iran, and but he has his the hair is curly, and then his name is Kian. So sometimes people think like he's mixed, and so it's amazing to find out what kind of treatment he gets sometimes when the person he deals with thinks that he's mixed. So it's just a very interesting dynamic. I don't know. I'm gonna pass the microphone to you and see if that's something that made sense, or you want to teach me something, Sarah.
No, I don't want to take up too much time now because we could spend an hour on this,
Right.
but it is interesting. There are certain features that people assume are white or black or Indian or Persian or whatever that are really human arts and crafts. When you really look closely, it's a combination of factors rather than one or the other. And that's the challenge, because there's so much beauty in the diversity of it,
Right.
but it's hard to identify. So people latch on to, oh, well, he's got good hair because, good hair meaning not too kinky, or, he's got the white feature of the nose. It's a little more prominent than flattened. And people say all kinds of crazy things like that, but it's a combination of factors that makes it beautiful.
Right. All right. To be continued, obviously. But thanks. I hope that was helpful. And I'm just gonna, Chris, thanks so much. And finally, sorry, this looks spectacular. I love did you do a background first? Did you work with acrylic? See, I noticed that, it almost seems like there's a back.
Yeah, I had primed a canvas with acrylic yesterday, so I just figured I'd use that.
Okay.
I wasn't sure whether or not the oil would work on top of an acrylic, dried base, but it seems to have held.
Yeah, that's actually a smart idea to do, to just coat it or prime it with acrylic, and then just work on top of it. But so Did you use any of the images of the
Yeah.
fold? Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. That's the yeah. So let me just, if you don't mind, I'll just go back to the image, put it right next, and then see if I can give you some points. I think it was.
Wait, you just passed it. Go down. Wait, down. There.
This one. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Also perfect. So, oops. Okay. It's just like I lost it again. Let me see. 1 second. 1 second. Here we go. All right. Yeah. I love the color palette. And then here we go. I'm just gonna put it right here.
I don't have the same colors that you were suggesting at all.
Okay.
So I was just going off of what I had, and it
Okay.
turned out real green. So I was fighting with that greenness. I played with some yellow, and that just absolutely went bananas. So then I was trying to fix that. Still
Well,
pretty.
I think what also helps is the color that you have around and outside, because that it gives a framing to the skin color that makes it less yellow. But I can see how there's a lot of yellow on the lighter tones. But yeah, let me just kind of like go. Yeah, so the first thing that I would say, I try, I usually approach it first from a compositional point of view, because it seems like this is a square um, canvas. And I like how you position the image, and also the fact that you brought space between the top and the hair. But I'll be curious to find out if you intend to ground the image with the rest of the upper part of the body, or if you're gonna leave it like that, because I think it would be interesting to anchor it. Um, but yeah, just have that in mind, because the fact that you have that space, it just makes it look like very collaged right now. And there's something really interesting about the grounding and the darkness. Um, but yeah, I think. Yeah, I think so. I think that the after the composition, I look at the drawing elements, and I think that's pretty good. The axis line dividing the face being obviously not in the middle but closer. The the eye, the tilt of the eye. I think that's very good also, and also the mouth. I think that's very good. Yeah, maybe the chin is a little bit more elongated on the painting. And also there is also this sense of the jaw and the neck being almost aligned on the painting, and I think there's more of a breaking point on the photograph, so that sort of like differentiates the structure of the face and makes the neck a little bit yeah, different. So I would just consider that breaking point. Um, yeah, that would be the only thing, and I think then it would be just a matter of like values. So because the image, I see the lighting direction or the light direction being very specific, and then there's a very strong harmony of values on the side. So I could almost like bring this area of the face as the separation between the area of the face that receives the light and then the side of the face. So yeah, I would make this a little bit almost more visible. And at the same time, I would try to harmonize the shaded area of the hair and the side of the face. So in other words, let me see if I can just do a little bit of nonsense here with this. But yeah, I almost see value-wise that there is this separation between where the light it's concentrated. And then if you notice this, it almost feels like there's a filter over both the hair and the skin. They're both harmonic, very almost like, I wouldn't say monochromatic, but close to monochromatic. So I think that brings more focus on the actual front of the face, and it could be a good idea to, let me see if I can, on the painting to reduce or tame the application of color, which you already did, but maybe a little bit more structured or organized between the left and the right side, and make these two areas very harmonious in value, very similar. Because I think that there's a lot of contrast between the side of the face, and I think that could give the sense of volume, the idea of the face wrapping around, softening the line between the skin and the hair. Because right now, this is clear that the face comes forward and the hair is behind. You have this really strong line that goes on the edge, the cheekbone and the jaw, but you have the same line quality almost on the other side. So it feels like it's taking away from the definition of this part. So I would mess this, make it blurry, tone it down, or uh, yeah, create more of a shaded effect. And yeah, no, I think that's good because you have um, the expression. I would work on uh, the bone structure a little bit more, because what happens here is that she's smiling and the cheekbones are pushing, they're pushing the skin against the eyes. So I feel that there's more of a relaxed idea here, and I would just bring more highlights. I would bring more highlights. I wouldn't do the wrinkles, obviously, but there's almost this idea that the bottom of the eye, it has a little bit of a belly. It's not straight or flat. And perhaps that would be the best way to make the illusion that the expression is pushing the skin upward, because there's a calmness and relaxed effect on the bottom line of the eye. So there's something almost yeah, convex or round. So I would work on that, or I would just give that a little bit of a detail. And it's challenging because her eyes are closed, much more closed. Yes. So you don't see any white of the eye. So I think that's possibly, you only see the highlights. I think you did an excellent job, but this is something to consider because there's barely any white of the eye. So I would play with that, with the idea of making the eyes, the bottom shape of the eye, a little bit on the opposite direction of the curvature. I love the smile. I think this is great. Yeah, I think the smile is fantastic. So I just love the fact that she has this kind of like serpentine, in and out curve right here. And then the rest of the mouth has more of a triangular shape. And I think you did a good job in that sense. It's just like very serpentine. And then, yeah, and the teeth also, I would just shade a little bit the right side so it looks like there's a cylindric shape um, on the teeth. I think that's gonna help you correlate the idea of the light direction. I think you did, but with also the rest of the light structure or the light structure on the rest of the face. So you have darker on the side when the face wraps, and you also have darker on the teeth where the teeth wrap. So that's just gonna make the light a little bit more integrated. And in regards of the skin tone, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of yellow. I think it works, but in order to pull back the yellow, um, I would just bring some red. Maybe I mean, even if cadmium red would work, but because the opposite of that tone, I would just bring some red, or even if you have pink, in order to counterbalance the dominance of the yellow ochre. So I do understand what you mentioned about the almost like the green, because of the amount of yellow ochre, there's a dominance. So I think it works. I would just be more focused on the light, and I love the fact that you have this note on the background, and that mean, the way I see it right now, I said it helps, but because you have warmth here, perhaps it doesn't. It just makes the skin much more yellow because you have such amount of red outside that whatever minimum amount of like yellow ochre on the skin makes it more dominant. So I like the tones that you brought, even these tones under the eyes, for example. I think that's a great note, or this area right here. So perhaps if you want to add highlights, I would take the opportunity to layer the highlights to also bring almost a very transparent, very sheer application of something with more red in it. Oops, sorry. I think, I don't know if that was, but yeah, let me just put it like right next to it. And I could see um, less, there's a dominance on the yellow ochre. So I would bring pink. If you have light pink and white, and then a tad of the cadmium red, just to pull back the yellow ochre. If you, I mean, yeah,
Great.
that's what I got.
No, that's great. That's helpful.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm super excited. And resemblance-wise, I think that's pretty remarkable and really good. So there's enough resemblance, but it's not trying too hard, which I think it's very important for me because if it's too close, I just feel like doesn't have personality. So I think it's really good. Um, thanks. And Lois, yay, are you here? I know.
I'm still here. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So thanks for choosing. Thanks for joining and choosing the image. I'm just gonna bring it. I know that you cropped it a lot. I think that was a good idea. And okay, so I think that's good. Let me just do it like that. Very good. Yeah, that's such a great image. I just love. Yeah, I love that you incorporated a little bit more of the upper body. So I think that's excellent. And so nice tilt of the face, and this is like facing forward, almost like super facing forward. But still, so light direction. It has a little bit of a direction because sometimes these official photos are done with studio light, and the flash has different points in order to flood the subject with light and avoid harsh shadows.
Yeah, it's just really kind of blown out Photoshoppy of her.
Yeah.
Even her skin, because she has makeup on and stuff, so it's a little hard to get the
Yeah. No, I love
in
that
there.
you brought like the actually darker shadow. So I think that's very good. So I would just soften the hair. I think compositionally, I think that's excellent. You left some movement. I think that's very good. It just feels like the shoulders. I mean, I love the face, but the shoulders feel very sort of like squeezed and narrow. So it gives
Yeah,
them.
her head's too big. Her head's too big for the body, but I wanted to make sure to get the shoulders within the
Okay.
picture. I didn't want them coming off,
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
So I think I can just start to shave down her face a little bit, just bring it all a little bit smaller, maybe.
I think so. If you want to keep that orientation of the shoulders, which I think is really good, because what I like about the image is that the face is facing forward, the shoulders are 3/4. So
Yeah.
I think that's really good. I would even shave from the left side of the, because there's something really cool about this shoulder being occupying much more space compared to the other side. So look at the distance here compared to this one. So
yeah,
I would even exaggerate it, and even if you want, not only shave, but I would even move this a little bit more towards the left. Yeah, in order to give you more of that sense of foreshorten between the shoulders.
right. Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
But yeah, I think in that sense, the skin tone is, I think it's good. Yeah, it has this sort of like a little purpley note. The expression, I think it's good too. The facial features are also bigger within the face, which I think it's also good because it just gives that very personal approach that, and it's very much a lowest painting. So I think that's also very important. Um, but I would say, what stands out when I have a face facing forward, then I look at things that I could do to break up that rigidity. So here it's really clear. You have the ear on one side, and then you have the cascading hair, and that and also the tilt of the hair on the shoulders. So I would just move the balance between the hair on the left and the right and make this a little bit more pronounced to create more of an imbalance um, as on the photograph. I think there's something good, cool about this because you have the diagonal of the shoulder coming down and then you have the tips of the hair following a different diagonal. I would also yeah, I would almost like a tidy up, meaning, resketch or redraw the tightness of things, the tension of the hair on the right side, because I feel like this, it's a little bit looser, and then it feels very much balanced with the other side. So I would tighten that, especially the narrowness of this space. So it looks like the hair is behind the ear, and yeah, I think so. Even though it's not, obviously there is some looseness, but I just like that the unbalance, or I would consider the unbalance between the hair on the right and the left in order to create a dynamic composition. So yeah,
Yeah, what do you think of the background? Like maybe I don't have to do the California flag. It kind of makes it too much of an X with all those diagonals. I don't know.
I think that's a personal creative choice. I mean, if it's part of the narrative, then I would say go a little bit further so it shows that it's California. So right now, this is much more identifiable. It almost feels like by omission. My eyes are like working at finding out exactly what that is, and perhaps it's more distracted to have it less developed than if it had an actual a little bit more of a development, because this picks up too much from the background, so it doesn't read like the California flag. So maybe darkening the background would also help you create less contrast between the hair and the background, and that alone would soften um, this idea of the head being bigger than the shoulders. So there's something about the darkness of the background that almost makes the hair fade onto the background and
Yeah.
brings focus to the face, so you can see less of that line. You bring less focus, and then it's darker than the bear on the flag. So then this feels like a shredded flag first approach, just because it has the same continuity as the background. So
Yeah.
just bring it a darker.
I think I painted it because I wasn't sure if I should paint it. I kind of wanted it to be, after our discussion of the Vogue cover, I wanted this to be a kind of an official looking portrait. I wanted to take away from that casualness because we were talking about how she kind of deserves a little bit more respect.
Yeah, so then absolutely, I would definitely. And you know what? If you bring a
I might
darker,
just take it out. I might just take it out and really bring her forward and maybe even darken the background so it's got that real, like White House portrait painting.
yeah,
Look.
you could do a few things. I also think that there's something really interesting about the fact that the flags are present, but are in the background. There's not a bright light to them. So I think that's something interesting because this feels very graphic and it comes forward a lot. So perhaps dimming the light entirely in the background would give you the best of both things.
Yeah.
The symbolism of the importance and the idea of this being an official portrait.
Yeah, like that background. There's one of the paintings that you showed. that was kind of elevating Black life. One of the first paintings. Here, I'm looking at it. Oh, this one. See this background of the girl from Lynette Yodom by.
Oh yeah.
Like, see that background?
Oh, you didn't. I don't even have to go there. I know. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I think I should do the flags in that manner.
I mean, this kind of like this.
No, the other one, the green one.
Oops.
I hate that one. I love this one. I hate the time portrait.
I know I didn't say
Be a photograph, for Christ's sakes.
I know it's a little bit cheesy, but and speaking of
this one, see the background?
Yeah, there's a lot of
I
harmony.
think if I could treat the flags like that.
Yeah.
And I really have her. I really love this painting. I want her portrait to be more like this.
Yeah, this is extraordinary in that sense. It's extraordinary, and there's a lot of harmony between the tones of the skin, the highlights, and the background. And what I love is also the harmony between the greens on the dress and the background. So it's just really calming, and the figure almost blends in with the background. It's just really, really beautiful. Nothing comes forward too much from the background. I think that's a good note.
I think I could do that.
I mean, it's super cheesy, and let's not forget, I didn't mention it, but this is a portrait of Joe Biden, essentially, and then there's Kamala Harris in the shadow, so she's in the back. So I didn't even mention it. I just put it as an example.
My favorite thing about my painting, though, is her blouse.
Yeah, I don't know how you want to. I love the pearls, actually.
But I love her silk blouses under her suit.
Yeah.
So I think that part was successful, and the rest I just need more time on it.
Yeah, and I would just bring some light notes on the suit if you wanted to, because this feels like really maybe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Good job.
Thanks.
Good thing we didn't do the vaccines because there aren't any.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Good thing we didn't do the vaccines because there aren't any.
I know, it's just yeah.
So good call on what to paint today.
Thanks, Lois.
See you later.
Say that again?
Bye.
Bye. So, sorry. This is amazing, Hania. I love that you chose. This is incredible. I love this portrait. I don't know if it's the same portrait or not, but this is just beautiful. So, composition. If you're here, Hania, composition is amazing. This feels much more defined than the one before. I don't know if it's like a step prior or a step later, but I'm happy with this composition here. So it's just really wonderful. The tilt of the head, it's wonderful. The way it occupies the rest of the photo is wonderful. Harmony in the position of the facial features is wonderful. So it's a really
Thank I am here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining and painting it.
It's cool. Totally enjoying it immensely.
The same one or a different one?
I'm just working on a couple, actually. And I don't know whether to go very sort of contemporary or
I like
or I'm just working on a couple of them using the same image, the young child, you know, and as she was younger there. This is a younger photograph of her.
Oh, I love this so much. Let me just bring it.
The baby as a baby.
Oh, that's so great. Hania, that's so great that you did. Oh, stop. That's just fantastic. Okay, now this. I love it. I love it, honey. I love it. I think
Thank you.
This is a great image, and it's very tender and it's very good. I think it's very good. I love the hair. So actually, I mean, because I thought this was almost part of the background, but
no, it's a hair.
Yeah, I think that's remarkable.
It's just nice to do. It's just I just want someone to look at it and just imagine, you know, just look at it and make their own decisions, you know.
Yeah, it's just the sketch is so emotionally deep, really beautiful, and I love that other approach. It just feels much more sculpture-like. Um, it's very uh, much more sculpture-like. I was gonna say it's very brutalist in the sense of like it's more of a carved image, but I love how it
Yeah,
occupies the space. I love this tone in the background. I mean, this looks amazing already just with the charcoal and the way you manipulate it. It's just exquisite.
thank you.
I'm really
Thank.
happy you joined. This is just really good, Hania.
I just want to do a sort of go and go for. I'm working on it all the time, and the image is changing all the time. You can't imagine,
Right.
or you can imagine.
Yeah, no. But you have such a beautiful range of qualities in the charcoal. You know, I love that you have drawn elements and you have wiped off elements. There's something about that it has the idea of like a dance of elements. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. I'm enjoying it. It's great to be back.
Yay! Thank you so much.
I still have lots of catching up to do. I'm working on my mushrooms.
Oh my gosh, I have to work on those myself.
Okay, we should all get together again.
I know. Yeah.
So close and so far away, all of
Um,
us.
well, we're just very appreciative that being so far, you're joining us.
Oh, it's cool. It's lovely.
We're very thankful and humbled.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm humbled too, actually. You know, it's lovely to get together with you guys. You know, I enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank yeah, and Julie, it's amazing. Thank you so much. You're here. I like the composition. Well, good call in just chopping the head, chopping the head.
Yes.
Just cropping the top. Um, and let me just bring the image if I can
Of course, the
find
contrast reads much stronger than in the photo than it
already,
is
right?
in reality.
Yeah.
And I just used 3 colors. So I'm trying to decide if I should go on further. I just used white and Payne's gray and burnt sienna.
So
Someone has their radio on.
I'm sorry.
Someone has their radio on.
Oh,
There we go.
okay.
So yeah, I'm open for ideas. You know, there's a lot more that needs to be done. I haven't really worked on the eyes yet that much.
Hold on a second. Yeah. I think the color palette is sorry about this. It's excellent. I would lower the mouth a tad because I would give a
Okay.
little bit more space
Uh-huh.
between the nose. But I think, well, compositionally, I think it's fantastic. I love the arrangement. I also love the fact that there's a tilt of the head. I think that's good. And there's also, I like how the shoulders are not aligned on the, on the shoulders. Yeah, no, I think that's just really, really, just drawing wise, I would just lower the mouth a tad maybe. So
Okay.
yeah, that would be the only thing because I love the nose, the eyes. I think that's excellent. Yeah, I would just yeah.
The eyes look too, they're a little more blurred than they appear here. They're so sharp, but because I feel like the lines are too strong right now on the eyes.
Yeah, possibly I would just blend maybe a little bit because it feels drawn. It just picks up from the line of the eyebrow. So the eyebrow feels like graphic and strong, but then you have the eye line that also,
Right.
especially the bottom of the eyes, I would soften that a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's barely, I mean, there is a little bit, but there's barely any white of the eye, just because again, the smiling just makes
Right.
it a little bit closer. So I would just soften that as well, because there's something about this not being super black. So there's something that picks up almost as a similar color as the hair.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
so I would just soften the bottom a little bit. I mean, the lower part. And yeah, also soften the darkness of the hair.
Soften the darkness. Yeah, because I had it just all with a burnt sienna to start, and then I added some of the Payne's gray, but it's not pure Payne's gray. It still is burnt sienna. I swear the camera just picks it up and turns it to black.
Oh, I see.
And that's with the eyes too. I feel like, oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I haven't worked on the shirt at all. How do you move a whole mouth? That just sounds so horrible. So yeah, I have to pull it down the top lip.
Yeah, I would just get a small brush, like
Yeah.
the practical way. I would just get a small brush, and I would, with a little bit of a with the note that you have on the skin, like this note, you still have it, and I would just literally resketch it. So I would sketch it with lines first, because I wouldn't wipe anything off and then redo it again. I think it's important to sort of like keep what you have. And then what I would do, maybe anchor the sides. The 2 points are the darker areas.
Right.
So there's a tilt, and then those 2 points, which you have, I would just anchor those first.
Tilt them a little more. Yeah.
Lower them a little bit, and then from that, I would just redo the. So
Okay.
yeah. So yeah. Let me
It'll
see.
look more like her. Yeah.
Right. So just kind of like put these 2 points first.
Okay.
Compared to the bottom of the
Try to
mouth.
do that.
And
Okay.
then I would just do the line of
Okay.
the lip, and then the bottom one. Just those 2 things first. And then once you have that, then you can decide between what you had before and what you have now.
Okay.
And then see if that makes sense, because wiping the whole thing off may, I don't know, it's just, I don't think it's necessary. So.
Okay. My other problem is I feel like she looks like a white person. And that's probably because I used some, white with burnt sienna, but her photograph is also very white.
Yeah, it's just the studio lighting, and it's been photoshopped for sure. But I feel like her pink, it's still, I'm looking at all these images. Some are official, some are not, but I feel like that a pink and a little bit of red and the absence of yellow still happens everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, so should I add another tone, do you think?
I think I would just add like pink, the light pink, because there's a lot of that light pink, and I notice myself using it a lot. So I feel like that it's something that's totally different than associating it with the white skin. Bringing
that could do it.
That salmon note. I think it's a salmon tone for me. The nude salmon, that it's different on her skin, that makes it different. So because it's really pale. Everything, if you think about like white skin, everything's really pale. So we have to work with temperature on her skin, not with value. So it's not about adding more or less of the value, but it's about adjusting the temperature. And there's more warmth and less yellow.
Right.
So I feel I would bring some pink notes in certain areas to make it more salmon.
Okay.
Yeah, and play with the, if you have the alizarin crimson, just play with the adding that a little bit of it, because that mixed with the pink and the, if you have ecru, it just gives you also this idea of like salmon or rose color.
Yeah, I haven't used any ecru even. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to do on it. So thank you for the notes. I have to run to an appointment. So
Go. Nice.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. And then Dina, oh, thanks so much. And I just love the image, great composition. I like that you uploaded. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so hold on 1 second. Let me just do this in a second. And oopsie, sorry. Oh, you added sorry. Oops, what happened here? Oh, okay, so sorry. Okay, so whoopsie. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, so great image. I love the selection, the two figures, and I think this is excellent, Dina. This is really good. And
I have to, yeah, I have to go back. Again, there's some proportions that I have
I think
to work
so.
on, but I wanted to, there's so much talk about her being an influence and inspiration for young kids. And I saw this one, and although it's two figures, and again, maybe I bit off more than I can chew, but two figures, it just was so sweet. It's powerful, it's sweet. It shows her smiling face, which you noted that so many pictures have her smiling face, which is
Right.
great. And so and the two different darks. So, we talked about symbolism and stereotyping, and how there's been talk about lighter blacks than darker blacks, and it's just all a bunch of nonsense. So here's a black little child, and it just was inspiring to me, caught my eye, and I just thought if I could portray that in a painting, I think that would make people smile.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent image, and it just brings a different narrative, and I love that you chose something with two figures, just because um, it just brings yeah, a different narrative there. So she's doing something. It's less about her, which I kind of like connect with you, Dina, in the sense that she's actually not focused on herself, but she's focused on someone else. So I think this is excellent. I love the selection. So here's your challenge in that sense, because it looks like this image is like square.
Right.
So your first challenge is to incorporate it into a rectangular format, and I think you did a good job in that sense, because you frame it in a way that gives some space on the top. Yeah, it's just going to give you a challenge in the sense of how to crop the sides, just because you have space on top to go higher. But then I already noticed that, the hand, it's a little bit less swinging back, and then you
Yeah.
crop the side, which is good. I mean, and also, yeah, I think it's good. So just have that in mind in the sense of the arranging from two different formats, square to this one, and how you're gonna crop it. I also very important, I think, because you have like now two focal points. You need to
Yeah.
decide how you want to make that the focal points, because you have figures on the back and you have stuff on the back. I don't think you need it, because this feels
No.
really clear
Yeah.
and really interesting. And here's the thing, or the challenge. The challenge is that you have a figure that's a kid
Right.
and a figure that's an adult, but they're
Right.
both the same height.
Right.
So it shows that one is on the foreground and
Right.
she is, lounging.
Right.
Lounging, right? Is that the word? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what my, the first pass of what I saw, I know, the child is larger because she's in the foreground, and rightfully so, she's supposed to be. So I think I have to make her larger than what she is, and I might crop my picture to match the aspect ratio of the source, because I cropped the source. It's
Oh,
actually
good.
I cropped it so it actually is more of a there is more picture on top, but it was like irrelevant to
Mm,
the center of the theme, or what
right.
I want to focus on the theme, because the background is this. My take on it is, it's her ripple effect that she
Right.
will have in her position,
Right. Yeah.
and what she represents. It's a ripple effect to the younger generation that coming after her. So I'm gonna have to, this is just like beginning
Right.
stages,
I
but
know.
I'm gonna make the child larger, because she needs to be larger. It's just like when you were mentioning, to move certain things in certain paintings, it's like it's not like digital, right? We can cut and paste and move it and select it. And so when you have to repaint it, it's okay. It's more of a challenge, but if you have determination, you can do it. So
Right, right. No, I think that's excellent. So, yeah, I just can't wait. I'm gonna just bring up also a couple of things. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
so this is an axis of the head,
right.
and
And-
I feel like there's an axis of the body almost like this.
Right.
Um, and then you have the axis of the hand.
Right.
So I feel like this is something that you could, let me see if I can, whoops, I don't know if that was a good idea or not, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, that helps because see her face has her head has to be bigger, wider.
I
Her head
wish,
has to be a little bit wider. Her
Yeah.
body's and the arm, if I put the head a little bit, bring it forward
let me see
and
if
make
I
it
can move this.
bigger, then it would be the same like how you're saying in the photograph. See, everything, I gotta bring that down.
Right. Yeah. I just like I just wanted to bring also this idea
Mhm.
of yeah, it's something that's bringing the axis
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a little bit more of a tilt,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's almost a little bit of a rigidity on the figure
Mm-hmm.
of the
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of the girl, and there's something really powerful about the fact that the girl is walking. Something
Mm-hmm.
I love that the center of gravity, it's
Mhm.
forward and
Mhm.
there's motion.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that yeah, I would play with that because it's a beautiful image. The image of the girl, I think it's just
Yeah, enthusiasm. She has enthusiasm,
yeah,
like
yeah, it's a beautiful image. It's just so interesting and nice. I like the dress, the hand motion. I think this is it alone could be a painting. So I think that's amazing and excellent. And then another idea that I may suggest, it's this. So you have the girl and her legs are like cropped because of the framing, right? But because
Mhm.
of the cropping of the legs, I understand that the visual plane is much more closer to me. And
Right.
because you have Kamala's shoes,
Right.
I can see them. It positions the figure further away. So there is a very strong sense of perspective by making one cropped and the other one not.
Right.
So if you make both cropped,
Right.
I wonder what that's going to do. So I don't know.
Mm. Yeah.
Consider that as well, because it may just bring the both figures at the same
See, yeah.
visual plane.
Yeah.
And it could be interesting because it may be like, the illusion that she's kind of like sitting somewhere.
Right.
And the fact that she's sitting down already brings her height at the same level. And it
Right.
doesn't have to show the shoes. So
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
things to think about.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, I've got more hours tonight to work on it.
oh my gosh, let me just say that you're amazing the way you work, because if you're so everyone knows Dina just continues working, and then she sends us images at 8 or 9 of the work that she worked the entire afternoon and evening. And when I get them, I'm like, oh my gosh, not only I get inspired because the work just transforms, but also I get inspired by the fact that you keep working. So I just
Well,
want
for me, for my way, if like the last time I could, when I get pushed back, I lose interest and I get tired. Not physically tired, but mentally tired of working on it, and it's harder for me to finish. So when I had to finish the snowman and the last Christmas and the toaster all in the same week, it was just too much. So I'm back on track now. So hopefully I'll get this and knock it out, and then until Tuesday, and then you can review it and give me some more suggestions. But
okay.
thank you so much. I think it's a great thing. Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks, Dina.
We
Thanks.
all hope there's peace on Wednesday. Gee, you would
Oh,
think so with so many with so many National Guard in the city of DC, let's hope that there's peace. So
Yeah. No, I know the news are crazy, but no, there will be. I'm just I
everybody
feel
keep
like
safe.
I'm sorry.
Everybody just keep safe and healthy
Right.
too.
Yeah. I think also it's important that I mean, I'm just gonna go into nonsense, new age thing or whatever. I think it's important that we all do our part to project our best optimistic energy out there to contribute to the happiest, most amazing outcome. Because I think I feel like that's personally my responsibility, even though the news keep coming and it's just terrible. But I feel like we can influence an event by collectively projecting or putting that energy out into the world and thinking that he is they are protected. Things have changed.
Yes.
It's not going to be ideal naturally, but what's important to me, I'm looking forward to it actually. I probably won't watch anything. But at the same time, I'm just I love the news of, I mean, whoever's going to perform. So that brings a little bit of light to the situation. I hope it's as normal as possible considering the circumstances. I'm just ready for the 21st and just to leave things in the past. And also I'm ready to continue fighting against fascism the best I can, because I feel like one of the things that this revealed is that this is not going to end just by the day after the inauguration. For better or for worse, this person was able to create a movement of people that is growing, and their intentions are to bring like fascism into this democratic country. And I feel like we can do our part, whatever small, in making sure that we don't let that happen. And I'm saying this because I was looking back at what artists painted during the 1930s and 20s in Germany, when some of the intellectuals and the artists, they knew what was coming more than 10 years before it actually happened. I was really shocked because I was looking at examples of the rejected art. I forgot the degenerate art. I think the degenerate art, the exhibition that the Nazis put together to showcase artwork that was ugly and represented the bad morals of the country. And so a lot of the artists that were included and were persecuted, they started painting things to warn people about the rise of fascism. And I got inspired by the idea and the fact that fascism takes time to take hold. It's not just a matter of months or someone doing something or someone being elected. So it could take a decade for authoritarian systems actually take hold and take roots. So this is just a taste, in fact, a taste of what can happen if we don't do whatever we can to fight against it. So we got a taste. We know how bad this is, but let's not get complacent. I think it's important we stand always on the right side of history and as many issues as possible. Let's try to also educate other people in the most articulate way as possible. Let's also isolate and reject people that have these crazy ideas that are not debatable. There's no question that this is not about the two sides issue. This is about someone really wanted to get rid of a system and annihilate an entire group of people. Sorry, I'm just gonna stop. But yes, we have a responsibility. And I take this very seriously. And I think this is just a journey and we're barely getting started and things are gonna get ugly, no question. And this has given people a lot of gas to continue to be violent and fascist. and it's going to take a while, but we can beat this. And our job as artists, I think, is just to bring awareness to yeah, the fact that this is not over. Vote for me.
On that cheery note, happy weekend, everyone. Love you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jen. Thanks for being there. Thanks for uploading everything. I hope everyone enjoyed the session, but also enjoyed the different representations of portraiture. That was really good, Jen. Thank you so much. Um, it's so interesting. Also, make an effort to follow those artists because they have exhibits and they are featured in articles and stuff. It was a very important show. You're gonna hear and see more of their work. And yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed this session and I learned a lot. So
Thank you.
thanks. And I'm gonna send a recording to everyone and have a great weekend. And we'll see you Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, and whenever.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You.
Thanks, guys.